Chapter 1104. Furthermore, it was said that from then on, the entire Jianghu continent had become an endless sea. Even a king could not fly over it. In the end, the outside world became a legend, and people treated this matter as a myth. However, they did not expect to hear news of the great Xia dragonfinch in the remote sky secret realm. At this moment, the dark red dragon snorted coldly. What kind of joke is this? How can it be the great Xia dragonfinch? If it really is the great Xia dragonfinch, I'm afraid the entire secret realm will cease to exist. The dark red dragon's voice rang out, causing everyone to shiver. Following that, everyone's faces were filled with doubt. That's right, what kind of terrifying existence could easily destroy the entire Jianghu continent? How could a secret realm trap it? The dark red dragon had come to look for the heavenly netherbird, but now the great Xia dragonfinch had appeared. This made him very doubtful, so he retorted. The others also came to their senses and stared at the old black turtle, their faces full of doubt. Don't tell me you're deliberately making up a story to deceive us in order to keep the Dragon Ball? That's right, how could it be the legendary great Xia dragonfinch? The group of people stared at the old black turtle in disbelief. The old black turtle shook his head slightly and sighed. You've misunderstood. The real great Xia dragonfinch has long disappeared in the long river of history. The one below is not the great Xia dragonfinch, but the heavenly netherbird. The heavenly netherbird has a trace of the great Xia dragonfinch's bloodline, and its strength is terrifying. It is also a demonic beast on the heaven list. In ancient times, this heavenly netherbird bewitched the world and was sealed in this secret realm by a peerless expert. This seal not only seals it, but also consumes its strength at all times. I'm afraid it can't use much of its strength now. But even so, it's not something we can resist. After all, none of the demonic beasts on the heaven list are easy to deal with. Furthermore, as time passes, the seal will loosen. I'm afraid it won't be long before the heavenly netherbird breaks out of the seal. At that time, not only will it be a disaster for the entire underwater city, but the remote sky secret realm will also fall into eternal damnation. And if the other party recovers its strength, I'm afraid your world will not be spared. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. The old black tortoise was right. Although the heavenly netherbird was not as strong as the great Xia dragonfinch, it was still a demonic beast on the heaven list. Moreover, the aura that everyone felt just now was really too terrifying. It was not something they could resist. If the other party really came out, none of them would be able to escape. Therefore, everyone's hearts were heavy, and their expressions were ugly. However, there was one exception, and that was Lin Xian. The corner of his mouth curled up, revealing a trace of joy. This was because the main reason he came here was to find the heavenly netherbird. Originally, he had only come to try his luck and wasn't completely confident. However, after listening to the old tortoise, he was certain that the heavenly netherbird was sealed under the underwater city. Only the flames produced by peerless beasts could burn in this endless sea and never be extinguished. As if responding to the old black turtle's words, an extremely low and obscure voice came from the depths of the ground. It seemed to be an illusion, yet it also seemed to be real. Along with this voice, everyone trembled as if they were in an endless sea of fire. The spiritual energy in their bodies was about to be roasted. But Lin Xian also felt this heat. Immediately, the big red sword soul in his body seemed to have been activated and let out a sonorous sword cry. The big dragon sword soul rarely had such a phenomenon. One could imagine how terrifying the other party was. The old black turtle's body swayed as if it would fall at any moment. Lin Xian took a deep breath and then sighed. He could see that the old black turtle did not have much time left to live. This was because with his perception, he could clearly feel that the other party's chi and blood had almost dried up. It could be said that it was a miracle that it could live until now. At the same time, he kept thinking about the news from before. Although he had obtained countless treasures, none of them were as important as this news because it was really good news for him. However, the only thing that worried him was that the heavenly netherbird was too strong. He was afraid that with his current strength, he would not be able to contend against the other party. It seemed that he could only think of another way. At this moment, the old black turtle spoke again. The dragon pearl contains powerful energy that can help prolong the seal and suppress and eliminate the disaster caused by the heavenly netherbird. So, please return the dragon pearl. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. They all looked at Zhao Shui because the dragon pearl was in her hands. Feeling the gazes of so many people, Zhao Shui's expression did not change. She still said coldly, "Using the dragons to suppress it will only delay it for a while. It won't solve the problem at all. Moreover, from the aura just now, the seal below is already very loose. I'm afraid that even with the dragon pearl, it won't last long. Now that the dragon pearl is gone, it might be better. You can make plans in advance. Maybe you can find a new way out. So, I won't return the dragon pearl. Zhao Shui decisively refused. What she said was right. Even if she left the dragon pearl with the current situation, it would only be suppressed for 1 or 2 years. After that, it would not be able to suppress it at all. At that time, these Sea clan would still have to suffer a disaster. Therefore, whether she took the dragon pearl or not, the result would be the same for these ocean pearl. Moreover, the dragon pearl was very important to her, so no matter what, she would not give it up. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. They did not say anything because they knew Zhao Shui's analysis. The old tortoise sighed. He was extremely disappointed. Lin Xian also sighed slightly. Indeed, the situation in the underwater city was not optimistic. Even if they did not come to seize the dragon pearl, they would not be able to survive for long. The old black turtle was extremely disappointed. To be honest, before this he did not believe that a human could take away the dragon pearl. Therefore he did not pay much attention at first. However, when he noticed, it was already too late. These humans had already taken away the dragon pearl. Moreover, he also knew that what he had said was the truth. Even if they had the dragon pearl, they would not be able to survive for long. I didn't expect this to be the result. I can only use my last bit of strength to contribute to this underwater city. At the end of his words, the old black turtle's eyes suddenly emitted a terrifying light, and his bent body instantly straightened up. Chapter 1105. 8th Heaven Venerable Realm. Feeling this aura, everyone's expression changed. They did not expect the old black turtle to suddenly erupt with such tyrannical power. This power was too strong. Even Zhao Shui and the 7th layer Venerable of Merry Woods could not resist it. Lin Xian also quickly used the red lotus armor to protect his body while constantly retreating. At the same time, he sensed that the spiritual power and qi and blood in the old black turtle's body were burning rapidly. It was because he was burning his life without caring about the consequences that he erupted with such a terrifying aura. Damn it, this old guy doesn't want to die with us, does he? The disciples of Divine Bird Palace screamed crazily. Hearing this, everyone's expression became extremely ugly. If the old black turtle really wanted to die with them, they would not be able to escape. Lin Xian's eyes flickered. There was no fear on his face because he knew that the old black turtle would not do this. Because this was the power obtained by burning his qi and blood in life. It was impossible to kill everyone. Moreover, it was useless no matter what the old black turtle did. After all, things had already happened. Even if he killed them all, it could not be reversed. Therefore he did not think that the old black turtle wanted to kill them. Sure enough, Lin Xian's guess was right. The old black turtle did not attack them. Instead, he used the last of his strength to quickly send a voice transmission to the underwater city and even the Sea clan further away. All Sea clan members, listen up. From today onwards, leave the underwater city and even this sea area. Also, don't come back for 100 years. Because a great disaster is about to happen here. This voice turned into rolling waves and spread clearly into the distance. Hearing this voice, everyone fell silent. They did not expect that the old black turtle would not attack them, but warn the Sea clan to evacuate. This action made them fall silent. However, at this moment, a terrifying fluctuation suddenly came from the underground of the underwater city, causing the entire dragon palace to tremble. Then the surrounding ground cracked and countless trenches appeared. Balls of black flames gushed out from the cracks and burned fiercely. This scene was very strange. This was the bottom of the sea, but there were countless black flames burning endlessly. Moreover, what was even more terrifying was that these black flames were too terrifying. They directly evaporated a large amount of seawater and even distorted the void. Accompanied by these flames, there was an extremely low voice. Just you wait, I'm about to break the seal. Old Taoist Song Song, you dared to seal me in the past. I will definitely avenge you. I want your mystic realm to cease to exist. His voice was filled with a primeval aura and endless fury. Hearing this voice, everyone's expression changed. They didn't expect the seal to be so damaged that even the heavenly netherbird's voice could be heard. This was not good news at all. Not only the human Jinji in the Dragon Palace, but all the Sea clans in the underwater city and even the sea areas further away also heard this voice. They were all terrified and their bodies were trembling. Run. The sealed Great Demon King is about to come out. Damn it. The heavenly netherbird is crazy. It wants to destroy the entire secret realm. Let's go. We can't stay here any longer. At this moment, everyone was fleeing. They wanted to flee to a safe place. Although the Heaven Serene bird couldn't break the seal for the time being, if it continued to stay in the underwater city, it would be burned to ashes by the black flames. Zhao Shui shouted and used her movement technique to quickly run outside. Because the situation was extremely chaotic and she had the Dragon Ball, who knew if someone would take advantage of the chaos to steal it? Therefore, without any hesitation, she turned into a white lightning and quickly left the place. Lin Xian waved his hand and called back the dark red dragon and the white monkey. Then he used the illusionary demonic steps and turned into a sword light, disappearing from the spot. The two of them were very fast and disappeared in an instant. When Elder Song and the others saw Lin Xian leave, their expressions became solemn. Then they said in a deep voice, "Follow me and break out with all your strength." The people of the Merry Woods and the Divine Bird Palace also fled in all directions, running out of the Dragon Palace. Outside the Dragon Palace, countless sea clans also fled. Because the disaster had arrived, the black flames coming from the underground were too terrifying. Even venerables couldn't resist it. Fortunately, they didn't have to deal with the black flames. They just had to be careful and avoid them. Although it was dangerous, it wasn't fatal. The 7th level venerables of the Merry Woods used a powerful technique to safely bring the people of the Merry Woods out of the Dragon Palace. Then she said to those people, "Hurry up and leave this underwater world. I still have some things to do, don't wait for me." After saying that, she turned into a ghost light and instantly rushed into the distance. This direction was the direction where Zhao Shui and Lin Xian left. It seemed that the 7th level venerables of the Merry Woods didn't give up on the Dragon Ball. The entire underwater world, which was the Mirage Sea Zone, fell into panic and disaster. The disciples of the Immortal Martial Academy risked their lives and finally left the Mirage Sea Zone. The moment they stepped on land, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, long before this, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui had already left the Mirage Sea. In a low valley, the two lights flashed and then turned into two figures. One of them was a tall and straight young man with an ancient sword on his back. The other was a fairy-like woman in a fluttering white robe. These two people were Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. "Young Master Lin, thank you for your help," Zhao Shui said. "It's nothing. You helped me find the water spirit pearl. It's only right that I help you." Lin Xian smiled. Zhao Shui nodded. "All right, since that's the case, I'll take my leave first. See you again." "Wait," Xian suddenly said. "What? Do you still have something to do?" Zhao Shui's brows furrowed and she looked displeased. Her current thought was to quickly refine the energy in the Dragon Ball. She didn't want to do anything else now. "I have a plan. I wonder if you're interested?" Lin Xian said slowly. Zhao Shui shook her head. "Forget it. I have other things to do. Let's talk about other things in the future." She turned and was about to leave. At this moment, Lin Xian's voice floated from behind. "Once this plan succeeds, I can guarantee that the benefits you'll get will be several times stronger than the energy in the Dragon Ball." "What?" Hearing this, Zhao Shui was stunned. She stopped in her tracks and showed a puzzled expression. Then she turned around with a cold smile on her beautiful face. "Young Master Lin, don't joke around. How is this possible? The Dragon Ball is a treasure left behind by a king. I really can't think of anything here that can be several times stronger than it." Seeing the look of disbelief on Zhao Shui's face, Lin Xian smiled and whispered a few words to her. Chapter 1106. You dare to have designs on the heavenly netherbird? Do you not want to live anymore? Zhao Shui was too shocked. She didn't think that the other party was even more daring than her. He actually dared to have designs on an ancient beast. This was no longer madness, this was simply courting death. It's nothing. The greater the risk, the greater the benefits. I think you understand this principle. Furthermore, the heavenly netherbird has been imprisoned for thousands of years. I'm afraid it can't use much of its strength. Furthermore, we don't want to kill the heavenly netherbird. We just want to obtain some benefits from it. I think it should be much easier." Lin Xian smiled and said, "Of course, if you don't want to, then forget it. I'll find someone else. However, if you agree, I can help you protect for free so that you can quickly absorb the energy from the Dragon Ball." After listening to Lin Xian's plan, Zhao Shui was speechless. She quickly thought in her heart. Lin Xian stood with his hands behind his back with a smile on his face. The reason why he wanted to find Zhao Shui was because she was his old friend. Although she had lost her memories, Lin Xian still wanted to cooperate with her subconsciously. Furthermore, from the process of Zhao Shui seizing the Dragon Ball, he realized that Zhao Shui urgently needed power. One had to know that the blood chi in the Dragon Ball had a great effect on 7th level Supremes. However, Zhao Shui was determined to seize the Dragon Ball. This was enough to show her desire for power. Now, there was a source of power that was even greater than the Dragon Ball in front of her. He didn't believe that she could resist this temptation. As expected, after thinking for a moment, Zhao Shui quickly nodded and said, "Okay, I promise you. However, if the heavenly netherbird really threatens my life one day, I will stop working with you. Don't worry, I won't joke around with my life." Lin Xian shrugged. Since they had decided to work together, the two of them gathered again and quickly discussed what to do next. At this moment, the void rippled and another figure appeared nearby. This figure was Mary Wood's 7th level Venerate. He had followed Lin Xian and Zhao Shui out of the underwater world. In his opinion, Zhao Shui and Lin Xian did not know each other before, and they were only in a cooperative relationship. Therefore, after leaving the underwater world, they would definitely act alone. At that time, Zhao Shui would be alone and he would have a chance to snatch her. However, the scene in front of him surprised him because the two of them did not leave. Instead, they gathered together and seemed to be chatting happily. It seemed that the relationship between the two was closer than when they were in the underwater city. Immediately, his expression became extremely ugly. He didn't have full confidence in dealing with Zhao Shui to begin with, and now that the mysterious and strange Lin Xian had been added to the mix, it made things even more difficult for him. This was because although Lin Xian's cultivation was far lower than his, the sword chi that Lin Xian had unleashed and the bright red battle armor made the 7th level Venerate frown. Therefore, the 7th level Venerate hesitated for a moment, then sighed and turned to leave. The appearance and departure of Mary Wood's 7th level Venerate did not escape Lin Xian and Zhao Shui's senses. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and smiled. Zhao Shui snorted coldly. He ran fast. There was a hint of anger in her voice. It seemed that if the 7th level Venerate had really said everything, Zhao Shui would have gone berserk immediately. Next, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui chatted for a while. Most of it was Lin Xian asking Zhao Shui about her past. However, after listening, Lin Xian was expressionless, but his heart was incomparably heavy. Because from the information he obtained, not only did Zhao Shui lose her memories, it seemed that her previous memories had been tampered with by someone else. Could it be that she was possessed? Lin Xian sighed in his heart. He transmitted a message to the Dark Red Divine Dragon. The Dark Red Divine Dragon also transmitted a message carefully. I'm not sure if she was possessed or not, but looking at her appearance, she definitely isn't some old monster. And if it's someone from the younger generation, it would be very difficult to succeed. Of course, this doesn't mean that there's an old monster helping her. Seems like we can only wait and see. Lin Xian didn't have any good ideas. Just as he was thinking about Zhao Shui, a large group of people suddenly flew over from afar. Junior brother Lin. Many shouts came from afar. Lin Xian turned his head and discovered that these people were from the Immortal Martial Academy. Seeing these people, Lin Xian also hurriedly stood up. With a tap of his foot, his figure sprinted over. Elder Song, everyone, you should leave quickly. I'm afraid that the seal below won't be able to hold on for much longer. Lin Xian quickly said. This news was told to him by Zero. When he heard this news, he was also extremely shocked. He didn't expect that the seal below the ground would be damaged to such an extent. It was on the verge of breaking apart. Hearing Lin Xian's words, Elder Song and the rest felt their hearts tighten. The faces of the other disciples also changed greatly. What about you? What do you plan to do next? Dugu Outyin looked at Lin Xian and asked in a low voice. I still have other matters to attend to, so I won't be following you. Lin Xian quickly said. Everyone leave this place quickly. Otherwise your lives will be in danger. After speaking, Lin Xian waved his hand and turned around to leave with Zhao Shui. What? Lin Xian wants to act alone? No way, he's too bold. Although he's powerful, acting alone in the remote sky secret realm is much more dangerous. So I forget it. Junior brother Lin is very mysterious. I don't think he'll be in any danger. Yes, we're the ones in danger. If the heavenly nether bird comes out, we're dead. A group of people quickly discussed. Elder Song also said in a low voice, let's leave this place quickly. Everyone quickly set off and ran towards the distance. At the same time, the warriors of the Divine Bird Palace and the Merry Woods also left Hai City and fled towards the distance. Just as they left, the sea behind them suddenly exploded. A huge whirlpool appeared in the sea. Balls of black flames gushed out from the whirlpool and instantly covered the entire sea. Endless sea water evaporated and formed clouds. Pillars of black flames as thick as mountains rose from the sea and connected the heavens and the earth. The entire sea was instantly torn apart by the impact. An extremely terrifying and ferocious aura came from the depths of the sea. In an instant, the entire Mirage Sea and even the surrounding areas were shrouded by a terrifying demonic aura. The disciples of the three major sects who had just left were also trembling. They looked back with a horrified expression. Especially the disciples of the Immortal Martial Academy, they felt a lingering fear in their hearts. Fortunately, Lin Xian had reminded them to leave quickly. Otherwise, they would have definitely been crushed into powder by that terrifying aura if they were a step late. Chapter 1107. What followed was an earth-shattering roar. The roar was filled with endless rage and violent power. In an instant, the surrounding ocean exploded. The sea demons that did not manage to escape in time were turned into a bloody mist. The roar pierced through the 9 heavens. Tens of thousands of sea demons died. It was a terrifying sight. A huge shadow appeared in the sky. It was a pitch-black demonic bird. Its black feathers looked like they were made of steel. There were balls of flames dancing on them like the flames of hell. Its body was so huge that it was almost as big as the entire Mirage Sea. It was like a burning gray cloud, exuding a destructive power in the air, causing everything in the surroundings to kneel down and submit. The heavenly netherbird. Countless people screamed in horror, "Oh my God, it really came out." The heavenly netherbird broke the seal and reappeared in the world. However, it did not leave. Instead, it circled in the sky. The reason for that was because there were several black chains on its body that bound its body. The chains were pitch black as if they were made of iron from hell. If one did not look closely, they would not be noticed. This was because the color of the chains was too similar to the heavenly netherbird's body. In fact, the chains were not originally this color. They were originally azure blue. However, after being burned by the heavenly netherbird's black flames for thousands of years, they became black. However, this also showed how terrifying these iron chains were from another perspective. After being burned by such powerful black flames for thousands of years, they did not break. There was not even a crack. It was unbelievable. In the distance, many warriors looked up in horror. Looking at the terrifying figure, their faces were filled with fear. Some of the weaker disciples were even trembling and sitting on the ground. Is this the heavenly netherbird? It's too terrifying. Just its aura alone is unbearable. As expected of an expert on the heaven roll, an ancient demon bird. Although it had been suppressed for thousands of years and was no longer as strong as before, its aura was not any weaker than the king. How strong would the heavenly netherbird be when it was at its peak? Although it had been suppressed for thousands of years, the heavenly netherbird's aura was still too terrifying. It was not something that anyone could withstand. In the sky, the heavenly netherbird's huge body covered the sky. It flapped its wings trying to break free from the black chains. However, the more it struggled, the tighter the chains became. The heavenly netherbird roared angrily. Then it opened its bloody mouth and spat out black flames. A ball of black flames surged out like a fireball from hell. In an instant, it hit the surface of the sea. Suddenly, the flames spread across the sea and covered half of the sea. Countless sea demons let out miserable cries as they were burned to ashes by the black flames. After doing all this, the heavenly netherbird still seemed to be confused. It spat out another beam of black flames. Suddenly, the sea was penetrated and the underwater city was razed to the ground by this beam of black flames. Those sea monsters that had not yet escaped were also left at the bottom of the sea forever under this blow. Blood spread and dyed the entire sea red. Endless miserable cries rose and fell one after another. The entire sea seemed to have turned into an azure hell. The surviving sea demons all felt their scalps go numb as they frantically ran outside. The heavenly netherbird spread its wings and covered the sky like 2 dark clouds. It struggled with all its might and flew into the sky. Rumble. Then the entire ground began to tremble as if an earthquake had occurred. Countless cracks spread across thousands of miles, spreading in all directions. The sea was even more turbulent as the waves rolled up and roared. The heavenly netherbird's body was covered in black flames. It was like a divine bird of the underworld as it quickly flew into the sky. Boom. An earth-shattering sound was heard as a huge crater appeared on the ground. Seawater flowed into the crater. Under the heavenly serene bird's struggle, the broken seal was finally broken. The chains also left the ground and flew into the sky with the heavenly serene bird. However, the black chains were very intelligent. The moment they left the seal, they intertwined and quickly wrapped around the heavenly netherbird's body. This made the heavenly netherbird, who had just escaped the seal, extremely angry. The flames on its body surged as it tried to break free from the black chains. However, after struggling for a long time, it was to no avail. Moreover, the chains became tighter and tighter as if they were going to sink into its flesh. Damn the astral chains. Not only did they trap me for thousands of years, but they even absorbed my energy to repair themselves. What's even worse is that I've been trapped in the 9 underworlds all these years. I can't even absorb energy from the outside world. A damn old Taoist song. One day I'll break these chains and destroy your secret realm. However, no matter how much you calculated, you couldn't have predicted that I would break the seal again. Wait until I find your nest in the secret realm and break the astral chains. Let's see who in this world can stop me. The heavenly netherbird's terrifying voice was like thunder. It was accompanied by black flames that blasted in all directions. Instantly, everything within a radius of 1,000 miles was flattened. Then it flapped its wings and quickly disappeared into the sky. It wasn't until a long time after the heavenly netherbird disappeared that the surviving creatures let out a sigh of relief. They were the disciples of the 3 great sections. Their faces were pale as they sat on the ground, gasping for breath. What happened just now was too terrifying. If the heavenly netherbird had stayed for a while longer, it would have definitely affected them. At that time, they wouldn't have been able to escape and would have disappeared from this world forever like the sea demons. However, the heavenly netherbird wasn't interested in them. It had only killed the sea demons to vent its anger for thousands of years. Its real goal was to break the astral chains on its body and obtain true freedom. This was because the astral chains were very special. Not only did it restrict its body, but it also prevented it from cultivating. Therefore, it had to break the astral chains in order to return to its peak state. After the heavenly netherbird left, the surviving sea demons all fled. The cultivators of the 3 great sects also hurriedly went on their way and fled. Who knew if the heavenly netherbird would come back? If they encountered it, it would be over. Just when everyone was running away, 2 figures flew in the opposite direction. They were flying in the direction where the heavenly netherbird had left. These 2 figures were Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. Chapter 1108. Lin Xian, are you sure you want to follow the heavenly netherbird? If we're discovered, we won't be able to escape. Zhao Shui's face was filled with worry because the heavenly netherbird's destruction was too terrifying. Even the terrifying Mirage Sea had been evaporated, let alone the 2 of them. Lin Xian was much calmer. He said, "Don't worry, we don't have to follow too closely. We just have to follow the remnants of the hell's black flames. The heavenly netherbird is definitely connected to the secret realm. It must know where the core of the secret realm is. That's the place with the greatest wealth in the secret realm." Hearing this, Zhao Shui took a deep breath as her eyes flashed. Indeed, the remote sky secret realm was very vast. Although there were humans who entered every time, they only explored 1/10 of the place. There were still 90% of the place that humans had yet to explore. If they followed the heavenly netherbird, they might really be able to find the core of the secret realm. Therefore, she gritted her teeth and followed. The 2 of them didn't dare to get too close. However, it was impossible for them to get too close. This was because the heavenly netherbird was simply too fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already disappeared. Fortunately, the black flames on its body scattered on the ground, guiding Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. However, they gradually realized that the black flames on the ground were quickly decreasing. This meant that the heavenly netherbird's speed had reached a terrifying level. However, the 2 of them were soul force experts. Their soul force was very strong and sensitive. Therefore, although they couldn't find the black flames, they could feel the traces left behind by the black flames in the air. With these traces, they could continue to follow. When they realized that the aura of the black flames lingered in the air for a long time, the 2 of them finally calmed down and slowly followed. Right now, the 2 of them weren't in a hurry. They believed that as long as they maintained their speed and followed the aura of the black flames, they would eventually find the heavenly netherbird. Along the way, Zhao Shui even tried to absorb the energy from the dragon pearl as they hurried along. Lin Xian didn't stay idle either. He would also quickly absorb the energy from the water spirit pearl. The 2 of them cultivated as they walked. Their days were quite fulfilling. A few days later, Lin Xian frowned because he felt an energy aura similar to the dragon balls on Zhao Shui. Not only that, but this aura also carried a trace of evil qi. After frowning and pondering for a moment, Lin Xian finally spoke. "Are you really not afraid of the evil qi's backlash? If we lose control at that time, I'm afraid the losses will outweigh the gains." Hearing Lin Xian's warning, Zhao Shui remained expressionless. She faintly said, "Don't worry, I've only absorbed a small portion of the Dragon Ball's power. Its true purpose is not prepared for me." "Not for you?" This time it was Lin Xian's turn to be stunned. He didn't understand what Zhao Shui meant. Could it be that she wanted to give the Dragon Balls to someone else? However, Zhao Shui did not reply and he did not have the nerve to ask again. But he soon understood. Because after another day, Zhao Shui stopped absorbing the Dragon Ball's energy. She did not transfer the Dragon Ball to someone else. Instead, a gray shadow appeared behind her. The shadow was very hazy like a closed eye. Void Sky Eye. Seeing this shadow, Lin Xian was slightly surprised. He knew that this was Zhao Shui's ultimate technique, but he did not expect her to use it now. Zhao Shui did not explain. Instead, she placed the Dragon Ball into the Void Sky Eye and continued on their way. The Void Sky Eye trembled slightly. Then, it completely swallowed the Dragon Ball and began to absorb the Dragon Ball's energy. Lin Xian was shocked. He finally understood that this Dragon Ball was prepared for the Void Sky Eye. At the same time, the Dark Red Dragon quickly transmitted a message. "Kit, you better be careful. This Void Sky Eye is very evil. Legend has it that when cultivated to the peak, you can summon a real evil eye." "A real evil eye? Is that real? What is that evil eye?" Lin Xian was surprised. "I don't know what it is exactly, but from history, any cultivator who cultivated the Void Sky Eye did not have a good ending. If this little girl insists on cultivating it, I'm afraid her future will not be good." Hearing this, Lin Xian's heart trembled. Then he used his soul power to communicate with the Dark Red Dragon. In the end, he fell silent. This was because the Crimson Dragon didn't know too much about it. However, from these few sentences, it could tell that the Void Sky Eye was very strange. It was a famous evil technique in ancient times. Lin Xian sighed in his heart. He had no idea how Zhao Shui managed to get her hands on this skill. However, it seemed like it would be impossible to stop her from practicing it. It seemed that he could only think of a way in the future. Just as Lin Xian and the others were rushing, the disciples of the other sects in the remote sky secret realm were also moving quickly to find their own treasures. In a mountain range there was a cave. In front of the cave there were countless cultivators. These people were the elite disciples of the various sections. In front of the cave there was a voice that opposed the crowd. This man was wearing a blue shirt. His eyes were deep like the starry sky. Although he did not emit any terrifying aura, he blocked the crowd outside the cave with his own strength. "Shen Song, although you are a member of the king family, it is impossible for you to take the treasure for yourself." The person who spoke was a young man in a white robe. He held a sword in his hand. The sword trembled with a biting cold aura. However, although the sword chi was sharp, there were many injuries on his body. His white robe was also torn and there were faint bloodstains on it. He looked at the figure in front of him and said coldly, "That's right. Isn't it just a stone tablet? Why do you want to take it for yourself? Why don't we comprehend it together?" A beautiful lady said. She looked at the cave and her eyes flickered. "Do you really think that you can go against 3 7th level supremacies?" This time it was an old man who spoke. 3 7th level supremacies. They did not expect the 3 of them to be 7th level supremacies. This was simply too shocking. If the 3 7th level supremacies joined forces, no one would be able to stop them. However, the man named Shin Tsong was expressionless. He did not even frown. He glanced at the 3 of them and said indifferently, "It's just 3 7th level supremacies in the beginning stage. You guys are not enough. Presumptuous. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish." The old man was furious. He took a step forward and the aura on his body exploded. Chapter 1109. At the same time, the other 2 roared and circulated their auras to the maximum. Streaks of sharp sword chi encircled the young man, making him look like a sword. On the other hand, streaks of colorful light formed on the woman's body and enveloped her. "Courting death? I think you're the ones courting death." Shen Tsong was not afraid at all in the face of the 3 7th rank powerhouses. Then he stretched out his finger and pointed. "Lightning dominates the world." The old man in gray attacked as well. Lightning flashed in the sky and formed a ferocious lightning beast. It carried endless lightning as it charged forward. However, that finger was too sharp. It was like a divine spear that could pierce through everything. In an instant, the sea of lightning that was emitting a terrifying aura was cut open. Then, the finger beam rushed towards the old man in gray. Boom. There was a shocking sound as the finger beam hit the old man and forced him to retreat. The old man in gray's arm was numb. He kept retreating and spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this scene, the surrounding martial artists were all shocked. This is unbelievable. Shin Tsung is clearly only a 7th rank supremacy, but he can easily injure cultivators of the same level. This is really incomprehensible. Is this the power of a royal family? It's really terrifying. The cultivators of the same level from other large sects can't compete with him at all. Didn't you realize that Shin Tsung has been fighting with so many powerhouses for so long? He hasn't even moved his feet. Everyone was shocked and felt their scalps go numb. The strength that Shin Tsung displayed was really too terrifying. In front, the 3 powerhouses were fighting fiercely. The momentum was terrifying and the light shot into the sky. However, in this intense collision, Shin Tsung was like a boulder and a pine tree. He stood firmly in the field and did not move a single step. Boom boom boom. In the end, Shin Tsung roared and threw out 3 punches, forcing the 3 7th rank supremacies to retreat. The 3 7th rank supremacies were sent flying. Impossible, I don't believe it. The old man in gray roared ferociously and pretended to be crazy. He could not believe that Lin Fan could fight against 3 7th rank supremacies. After all, they were in the same level. However, the gap between them was so huge. He could not accept this. It wasn't just the gray-robed elder. The other 2 7th level venerables were similarly shocked. That punch just now was too terrifying. It shook their blood and chi to the point where they were sent flying. Moreover, from the beginning until the end, Shin Tsung hadn't moved a single step. In other words, he hadn't used his full strength when dealing with the 3 of them earlier. Thinking of this, everyone felt their scalps go numb. They looked at the figure with fear. Shin Tsung stood with his hands behind his back. He scanned the surroundings and said in a deep voice, "I've already said that the 3 of you are no match for me. Now that the battle is over, everything in this cave belongs to me. If you're not convinced, we can fight again. Of course, this time I won't be lenient." At the end of his speech, his eyes gradually became sharp, like 2 heavenly blades that cut through the void. There was nothing else in the cave except for a huge engraved stone tablet. This was no ordinary stone tablet. It was left behind by a king. It recorded some peerless martial arts as well as the precious experiences of kings. It could be said that this was a treasure that could drive countless unbounded laws crazy. However, this precious thing now belonged to Shin Kong. Everyone was indignant, but there was nothing they could do. General Manager Shin smiled faintly and turned to walk towards the cave. However, at this moment, an extremely powerful force surged from afar. This force was extremely terrifying, as if it could destroy the world. What a terrifying force. Who is this? Is a peerless expert coming? Many martial artists were terrified. As for the 3 7th heavenly layer venerables, their faces were solemn as they looked up in shock. That was because that force made them tremble uncontrollably. This kind of situation was very rare, and they would only tremble uncontrollably when facing a king. A king, this is the aura of a king. Impossible, how is this possible? How can a king enter the remote sky mystery realm? Could it be a native king here? The 3 powerhouses were terrified and couldn't believe it. Shin Tsung stopped and his expression was extremely grave. All the muscles in his body tensed up, and the spiritual power in his body circulated rapidly. He was extremely nervous. This force was too powerful. It wasn't inferior to his family's ancestor at all. Just as everyone was extremely nervous, a huge black shadow swept across the sky. The wind howled, lightning flashed, and countless black flames danced. The entire void shattered. What exactly is that? When the crowd saw the mountain-like figure, they were all stunned. That figure was so huge that it covered the entire sky. Everywhere it passed, it created a terrifying scene. Moreover, there was an unbearable heat wave in the air. They knew that it was definitely not a human. Demonic beast, there was actually such a terrifying demonic beast here. It looked like it was definitely a king of monsters. Everyone trembled at the thought of this. Fortunately, the king of monsters wasn't coming for them. It didn't stop there at all and flew past quickly. However, when the black flames fell from the sky and landed on the bodies of the martialists, a large number of them were burned to ashes. Instantly, screams were heard. Countless martial artists fled to avoid the black flames that fell from the sky. Shin Tsung frowned. He also swayed his body and quickly dodged the black flames. What kind of demonic beast was it that had such a terrifying flame aura and an ancient desolate aura? Shin Chang's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He realized that things were a little out of his control. There wasn't such a peerless demonic beast in the information that he had received. In fact, this was only a small episode. Everywhere the heavenly nether bird passed, it created a doomsday scene. Along the way, a large number of mountains and trees were destroyed. Countless demonic beasts died in the disaster. There were even some unlucky humans who died in this disaster. In the depths of the remote heavenly secret realm, there was a huge ancient tree. It was like a huge mountain that pierced through the clouds. Under the ancient tree, there was a tall young man with a cold face. He was fighting with the demonic beasts around him. The demonic beasts had human faces and beast bodies. Their bodies were emitting green light. As they flapped their wings, they created tornadoes. Countless wind blades filled the entire space and quickly slashed at the cold young man. These demonic beasts were all wind demon beasts. They were very powerful. Each of them was above the sixth heaven of the martial honor realm. The leader was even a powerful demon general that was equivalent to the seventh heaven of the human realm. Humans wouldn't dare to get involved with such a group of terrifying demonic beasts. However, the young man came here and was not afraid of so many demonic beasts. 8 Blades of the Ocean Abyss. Chapter 11:10. A blinding saber radiance lit up, and the entire space was quickly annihilated. Countless sharp auras filled the air. The surrounding demonic wind beasts cried out in pain as their bodies were all torn in half by the saber. The ground cracked open and countless cracks extended into the distance. Far behind the ancient tree there was a blurry figure. He looked at the scene in front of him and muttered to himself, "Yan Feng is indeed an exceptional genius of the Palace of Gods of War. He has reached the seventh heaven honorable realm at such a young age. Moreover, that saber should be the 8 sabers of the sea. I didn't expect him to comprehend it to such a level." The blurry figure muttered to himself. His voice was solemn. The young man called Yan Feng killed the surrounding demonic beasts and walked towards the giant ancient tree. According to the map, after passing through the 1,000-year tree demon, I won't be far from the Pine Palace. Yan Feng muttered. As a core disciple of the Palace of Gods of War and a peerless genius, he knew more information. Moreover, what was even more fortunate was that he was directly sent to the vicinity of the core area when he entered the remote sky secret realm. Therefore he had the chance to find the Pine Palace. However, in the next instant his body shook and he turned around abruptly. His eyes were filled with shock. This was because there was an extremely powerful aura behind him. It was as though a peerless demon was going to destroy the world. When he felt this aura, his body froze. The blood in his body seemed to have been frozen, and he couldn't activate it at all. Suppression. This was absolute suppression. Cold sweat dripped down Yan Feng's face. He didn't know who was behind him, but he knew that if the other party wanted to attack, the aura alone would be enough to kill him. In the next instant he turned around and saw Jin Shimu, who was extremely shocked. A gigantic black divine bird flew across the sky, bringing with it an endless sea of flames and wild winds. The entire sky was destroyed beyond recognition. As it flapped its wings, the mountains within a radius of 10,000 miles collapsed, turning into water and gravel. This horrifying scene shocked Yan Feng. However, what shocked him even more was that such a powerful demonic beast king seemed to be targeting the Pine Palace as well. When he saw this, his face turned ugly. This was because only the Palace of Gods of War knew about the Pine Palace. The other forces didn't know about it at all. Moreover, the location of Deep Pine Hall was extremely mysterious. Ordinary martial artists could not find it at all. If he hadn't been lucky enough to be teleported to the vicinity of Deep Pine Palace, he wouldn't have been able to find it even if he knew the location of Deep Pine Palace. However, the sudden appearance of this peerless demon had disrupted everything. This was because the other party was too obvious and too eye-catching. Wherever they passed, everything was destroyed. Such a large commotion would definitely attract the attention of other cultivators in the mystic realm. Furthermore, their target was Dark Pine Hall. If someone were to analyze it carefully, they would be able to find out about the existence of Deep Pine Hall. Many martial artists would even act upon hearing the news. At that time, Dark Pine Hall would no longer be a secret. But this is even better. Yan Feng took a deep breath. Originally, I was having a headache because of the powerful restrictive formations in Deep Pine Palace. Now that we have this peerless Yao King, I think we should be able to break through many of the restrictive formations. We might even be able to enter it. Yan Feng's lips curled into a cold smile. Indeed, as the core of the mystic realm, Deep Pine Palace was definitely protected by powerful restrictive formations. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to completely break through these restrictive formations. However, it was different now. With this king-level demonic beast, it would be much easier to break through the restrictive formations in Deep Pine Palace. Thinking of this, he took out a crescent-shaped jade horn from his storage ring and quickly sent a message to it. This was one of the methods the Palace of Gods of War used to transmit information. By transmitting his voice into the jade horn, he would be able to pass the message through the inscriptions on the jade horn to the person who was holding the same jade horn. It was very convenient. After sending the message to his companions, Yanfeng's figure flashed and quickly rushed towards Deep Pine Palace. The heavenly Netherbird had caused a huge commotion in the mystic realm. In an instant, countless martial artists knew that there was a peerless Yao King in the mystic realm. It was extremely cruel. With a raise of its hand, it could destroy countless mountains. It was extremely cruel, causing thousands of demonic beasts to die in a disaster. However, not everyone thought so. There were a few people who noticed that the Yao King seemed to be impatient to go somewhere. In fact, many people had already decided to quickly follow it to take a look. This was because a place that could move a Yao King would definitely have something good. In an instant, the entire Hidden Sky secret realm was in an uproar. Among them, the calmest were Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. They had long known of the heavenly Netherbird's existence and knew where it wanted to go. The two of them continued to follow it. They were not in a hurry at all. They cultivated as they followed it. They were not afraid of losing it because the heavenly Netherbird was too domineering. Wherever it went, everything would cease to exist. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui only needed to follow the destroyed areas. As they hurried, Lin Xian discovered that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth became denser. He knew that they were already close to the core of the mystic realm. Therefore, the following journey was not easy. This was because they often encountered powerful demonic beasts along the way. They also saw many martial artists who had the same goal as them. Of course, their gains along the way were not small. After all, this was already the core zone. There were many more natural treasures than the outer zone. With Lin Xian, Zhao Shui, the dark red divine dragon, and the snow-white little monkey, this combination was like a fish in water in the core zone. After walking for another half a day, the two of them stopped to rest and strengthen their cultivation. As they approached the core zone, the surroundings became more and more dangerous. Therefore, the two of them had to maintain their physical strength to be able to deal with sudden situations. After finding a safe mountain, the dark red divine dragon set up some arrays. After that, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui sat down cross-legged and began to regulate their breathing and cultivate. Lin Xian took out the water spirit pearl and circulated the art of longevity to absorb the energy inside. At the same time, he comprehended the water element inside to perfect his ice lotus martial soul. In addition to the many natural treasures in the Hidden Sky secret realm, the spiritual qi here was also denser than the outside world. It could be said that cultivating here would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. Not long after, Lin Xian had recovered all the spiritual qi he had consumed during the journey. Next, he had to focus on improving his cultivation. He was now at the 5th heaven of the Venerable Realm and was breaking through to the 6th heaven. He needed an extremely strong accumulation of spiritual qi. Chapter 11:11. Zhao Shui also sat cross-legged and closed her eyes. Her palm formed a strange seal. Then, an illusory eye appeared behind her back, emitting a strange energy. Clearly, Zhao Shui was using the Void Sky Eye to absorb the energy within the Dragon Pearl to strengthen herself. However, she didn't absorb it directly. Instead, she let the Void Sky Eye absorb the energy within the Dragon Pearl. Not only would this increase her strength, but it would also allow her to break free from the influence of the blood qi within the Dragon Pearl. The Void Sky Eye began to pulse rhythmically. Every time it pulsed, it would release a powerful aura. Even Lin Xian, who was beside him, was shocked. As expected of a famous ancient cultivation method, the Void Sky Eye was truly amazing. The fluctuations it produced shocked even Lin Xian. There were very few cultivation methods that could cause such an effect on him. This was enough to show how extraordinary the Void Sky Eye was. However, this was also what he was worried about. The Void Sky Eye was too strange. He was afraid that Zhao Shui wouldn't be able to control it in the future. Shaking his head slightly, Lin Xian closed his eyes and absorbed the energy within the Water Spirit Pearl once more. As he absorbed, his cultivation increased bit by bit. Half a day later, he opened his eyes once more and put away the Water Spirit Pearl. This was the upper limit of the energy he could absorb. If he absorbed any more, he wouldn't be able to control it. Now he could use it as he wished. After absorbing the Water Spirit Pearl's energy, Lin Xian glanced at Zhao Shui and saw that she was still cultivating. Thus he began to cultivate. This time he didn't cultivate. Instead, he began to comprehend the blood sword inheritance. Right now he had 4 martial arts in his possession. They were his strongest pillars. Two of them were Earth-class martial arts, the Gale Lightning Sword Art and the Illusory Demon Step. The other two were King's inheritances. One was the Pill Dao inheritance left behind by the Pill Feather King, while the other was the Blood Sword King's Blood Sword inheritance. Right now, Lin Xian wanted to comprehend the Blood Sword inheritance. Previously, he had already comprehended the fourth level of the Blood Sword family's inheritance. Now that he was faced with such a miserable situation, he gained new insights. The Blood Sword inheritance. Just from its name, one could tell that it could only be improved through battle and slaughter. Even though Lin Xian hadn't engaged in a fierce battle in the past few days, he had personally witnessed the destruction caused by the heavenly Netherbird. This kind of devastation was even more terrifying than the battles he had experienced before. A casual wave of a hand could destroy mountains and rivers. Lin Xian took a deep breath as streaks of blood-red sword qi appeared around him and quickly circled around him. The bloodstains on the ground also began to tremble. In the end, they turned into small swords that rapidly shuttled through the air. In the end, countless blood-red swords appeared where Lin Xian was standing, connecting together to form a hellish scene. That terrifying scene caused the remaining demonic beasts in the surroundings to tremble and quickly flee. Boom! Suddenly, the sea of blood surged and quickly split apart. Then, a blood sword pierced through heaven and earth. The blood sword inheritance has reached the 5th level. Lin Xian was ecstatic. He didn't think that he would be able to break through so quickly. Thinking about it, it must be because of the scene caused by the heavenly Netherbird. It was too shocking, too terrifying, and left a deep impression on him. This would allow him to break through the blood sword inheritance quickly. When he broke through to the 4th level, Lin Xian comprehended the Blood Shadow Doppelganger. Thinking about breaking through to the 5th level, he should be able to obtain a new secret technique. Sure enough, a new martial art appeared in his mind. Bloodthirsty Frenzy. To be more precise, it was a secret technique that allowed a martial artist to burn their blood essence and obtain power that exceeded their cultivation for a short period of time. Could be said that it was a life-saving method. Moreover, this method of burning blood essence was much better than the reckless methods of ordinary martial artists. The purpose of the Bloodthirsty Frenzy wasn't to injure or kill a martial artist, but to effectively use blood essence to increase one's strength for a short period of time. Therefore, using the Bloodthirsty Frenzy could allow one's blood essence to be controlled within a reasonable range and ensure that the martial artist wouldn't be harmed. In other words, if Lin Xian used the Bloodthirsty Frenzy, he would be able to obtain great strength for a short period of time. After that, he would only lose blood essence, which could be replenished by using more treasures. It wouldn't hurt his martial arts foundation. This was an extremely powerful method of the Blood Sword King back then. Of course, there was a limit to burning blood essence. If it exceeded the limit of the Bloodthirsty Frenzy, it would hurt one's foundation. Overall, as long as one didn't use blood essence recklessly, there wouldn't be any problems. It could be said that the Bloodthirsty Frenzy was an extremely good secret technique. After knowing this, Lin Xian smiled. Now, Lin Xian's spirit energy was only inferior to a 7th level venerable, but in terms of defense and attack, he was no different from a 7th level venerable. With his Dragon Sword Soul's powerful battle strength, coupled with the Bloodthirsty Frenzy, he could erupt with strength far exceeding his own for a short period of time. The combination of the two allowed Lin Xian's battle strength to reach an unimaginable level. Moreover, this was only Lin Xian's own strength. If he used the Dragon Sword Soul or the Thousand Beast Cauldron, his strength would be even more powerful. Of course, these two items were his last resort. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't use them. After putting all the blood swords back into his body, Lin Xian looked back at Zhao Shui and found that she seemed to have stopped cultivating. The two rested for a while before setting off again. This time, not only did Lin Xian reap great rewards, but Zhao Shui also reaped great rewards. She exhaled softly, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. This Dragon Ball was indeed a treasure left behind by a king. The energy contained within it was simply too great. After absorbing it for a few days, her strength had increased significantly, and her virtual sky eye had become more condensed. Previously, the virtual sky eye was still a little blurry, but now it was clearer than before. Moreover, from the energy fluctuations it emitted, it was far stronger than before. This made Zhao Shui very happy. The two of them set off again, continuing to pursue the heavenly Netherbird. However, this time, they didn't walk for long before they felt an intense fluctuation of spiritual energy in front of them, accompanied by the sound of fierce fighting. Damn it! That person from the Divine Bird Palace took the Jade Bodhi and Ghost Flower. Hurry up and chase, we can't let him escape. Countless angry shouts were heard. Immediately after, A ray of thunder and fire flew towards Lin Xian like lightning. It was very fast, like a flash of lightning, and carried with it a scorching and violent aura of thunder and fire. Seeing this scene, Zhao Shui's face darkened. This was because she could see that the purpose of this ray of light was to use her and Lin Xian as shields to block the pursuers. Chapter 11-12. With a cold snort, she struck out with her palm. Whoosh! The light flickered very quickly, leaving the people behind her far behind. The owner of this thunder fire was a middle-aged man. He originally wanted to use Lin Xian and Zhao Shui as shields, but he did not expect that the other party would dare to attack him. Zhao Shui did not deliberately release her aura, so the martial artist from Divine Bird Palace did not know her strength. However, looking at Zhao Shui's young appearance, her cultivation should not be too high. Therefore, at this moment, seeing Zhao Shui attack, the middle-aged man from Divine Bird Palace showed a disdainful smile. However, in the next moment, his pupils shrank and his expression changed greatly. That palm was too terrifying. Not only was the trajectory mysterious, but the energy contained was even more terrifying. This palm strike could easily kill a sixth heaven honorable martial artist. No matter how high the cultivation of the middle-aged man from Divine Bird Palace was, he was only a sixth heaven venerable and could not resist such power. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and could only use a secret technique to stimulate the bloodline power in his body to greatly increase his speed, so that he could dodge this terrifying light palm. Fortunately, he was a martial artist from Divine Bird Clan and had the bloodline power of Divine Bird in his body. Finally, just as the palm of light was about to hit him, he suddenly sped up and narrowly dodged the palm. Whoosh! His body appeared on the other side. The middle-aged martial artist's face was pale and he breathed a sigh of relief. Then he glared fiercely at Zhao Shui and was about to leave. At this moment, something strange happened again. Around the middle-aged martial artist, the air fluctuated and blood swords appeared, forming a cage and trapping him. The middle-aged venerable was furious and frantically resisted, but it was to no avail. Not only that, the chi and blood in his body were almost absorbed by these strange blood swords. Seeing this scene, the middle-aged venerable from Divine Bird Palace's face darkened. He knew that this time he had kicked an iron plate. Although the two people in front of him were young, their strength was absolutely terrifying, at least above his. Both of you, let's talk nicely. Don't fight anymore. Feeling the increasingly terrifying blood-fiendish chi, the middle-aged man from Divine Bird Palace was so scared that his scalp went numb, and he had to quickly beg for mercy. However, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui did not react at all. Seeing this situation, the middle-aged martial artist was filled with regret. There were so many directions in all directions. Why didn't he go? Why did he have to pick a direction? Back then he had wanted to use Lin Xian and Zhao Shui as shields. Now, it seemed that he had overestimated himself. Such a person was not someone he could provoke at all. Which power did these two young men belong to? It was actually so terrifying. That shouldn't be the case. Even if he was a disciple of a king clan, he shouldn't be this terrifying, right? The middle-aged warrior from Divine Bird Palace felt his scalp tingle as he kept thinking. You two, I am from the Divine Bird Palace. If you let me go, the Divine Bird Palace will reward you handsomely. In the end, the middle-aged martial artist gritted his teeth and revealed his identity. Divine Bird Palace? Hearing these three words, the corner of Lin Xian's mouth revealed a trace of a playful expression. Seeing Lin Xian smile, the middle-aged martial artist's heart thumped. He had a bad premonition from the bottom of his heart. Young Master Lin, how should we deal with this guy? Zhao Shui asked coldly. He seems to have two good treasures in his hands. Why don't we snatch them? Of course we want the treasures, but since this man is from Divine Bird Palace, let's kill him. Lin Xian's voice was indifferent. He and Divine Bird Palace were mortal enemies. Now that he saw a martial artist from the other side, he naturally would not be lenient. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the middle-aged martial artist's heart sank to the bottom of the sea. However, he would not sit still and wait for his death. You want to kill me? It's not that easy. The middle-aged martial artist was very decisive. He cut off one of his arms and used a secret method to form a terrifying explosion of aura, breaking open the blood sword cage formed by Lin Xian. Then, the middle-aged man let out a long roar and increased his speed to the extreme. At the same time, he urged the bloodline power in his body to form two huge wings behind his back. The wings flapped and carried him quickly to escape into the distance. All this happened in an instant. In the next moment, the middle-aged martial artist had already escaped into the distance, and the round hole was about to disappear. It could be said that it was not easy for a 6th-level venerable to escape so far in an instant. However, in front of Lin Xian and Zhao Shui, the middle-aged man was destined to be miserable. Zhao Shui snorted coldly and waved her hand. Suddenly, a blurry eye appeared above her and shot out a gray light, instantly piercing through the middle-aged martial artist. The middle-aged martial artist screamed as his body fell from the sky and crashed heavily on the ground. The martial artist chasing behind happened to see this scene and immediately stopped, their eyes filled with horror. They had just arrived and saw Zhao Shui raise her hand and kill the middle-aged martial artist from Divine Bird Palace. As for the rest, they did not know at all. However, this scene alone was enough to frighten them. One had to know that the other party was an expert from Divine Bird Palace, and a 6th-level venerable. This kind of person could be said to be extremely powerful, but he was killed with a raise of her hand. This was unbelievable. The most frightening thing was that the other party was very young and looked to be from the younger generation. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui ignored the martial artists who had rushed over and began to plunder the middle-aged martial artist's treasures. If they guessed correctly, this middle-aged martial artist should be an elder, and there should be a lot of treasures on him. However, Lin Xian sighed slightly after searching for a while. Although the items in the storage ring were indeed treasures in the eyes of others, he was not interested in them at all. He was only at the 5th heavenly layer, but he had seen too many treasures, so he didn't care about ordinary things at all. However, there were 2 things that caught his attention. These 2 swords were the 2 treasures that the middle-aged martial artist had just stolen, the jade Bodhi and the ghost flower. This jade Bodhi was only the size of a walnut. It was crystal clear and flickered with a faint light. Lin Xian examined it and found that the jade Bodhi had the effect of sobering, calming the mind. It could help the martial artist enter a meditative state and help the martial artist maintain a clear mind and not be disturbed by the evil aura. It could be said that it was a treasure that assisted in cultivation. As for the ghost flower Zai, it was a palm-sized flower with a total of 6 petals. On each of the petals there was a mysterious pattern. Lin Xian knew that this was not artificially engraved but innate. Moreover, he had seen this ghost flower in the inheritance left behind by King Danyu. It was a flower that could improve soul power. It could be said to be incomparably precious. No wonder the martial artists were chasing after them. Not to mention other things, just these 2 treasures were enough to move most of the venerables. Chapter 11-13. Miss Xiao, you've been absorbing the energy from the Dragon Pearl for the past few days. Although you have the virtual sky eyes, you should still be affected by the evil energy. This jade Bodhi can expel all evil energy. Now that I'm giving it to you, it can restrain the evil energy from the Dragon Pearl. If you have the spectral soul, it has the effect of increasing soul power. It'll be of great help to my martial soul. Why don't you give it to me? All right. Zhao Shui nodded when she heard Lin Xian's arrangement. She knew that Lin Xian was thinking for her sake. Over the past few days she had also felt that although she had the virtual sky eyes, she was still affected by the evil energy. If she had the jade Bodhi, she could suppress the evil energy and greatly increase the speed at which she absorbed the energy from the Dragon Pearl. It could be said that this item was very suitable for her. Zhao Shui smiled faintly. Then she picked up the jade Bodhi and hung it around her neck. Suddenly, a cool aura was emitted from the jade Bodhi and quickly entered her body, suppressing the evil energy. Zhao Shui's body trembled and she felt much more relaxed. Lin Xian smiled when he saw the changes in Zhao Shui. The fact that the other party was able to suppress the evil-killing aura was undoubtedly good news for him. With a smirk, he kept the spectre flower in his storage ring. The spectral flower had the effect of increasing soul power. It was very useful to him. This ghost flower would allow Lin Xian's soul power to rise to another level. Furthermore, it would further strengthen his great dragon sword soul. However, Lin Xian didn't eat it immediately. He was going to use it when the time was right. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui's actions caused the group of cultivators behind them to be dissatisfied. Suddenly, cold snorts came from behind them. Lin Xian frowned when he heard these sounds. He turned around and looked behind him. Not far behind him stood a group of cultivators. Their faces were gloomy and filled with killing intent. At the very front of these people stood 2 figures. Clearly, these 2 people were the leaders of these people. "Who are you? What business do you have here?" Zhao Shui asked coldly. Hearing this, the faces of those martial artists became even gloomier. The leader snorted and quickly said, "We are the Li clan, one of the 8 great clans under young Master Ling Feng. May I know who you are?" This woman was called Li Jia, and she was the most outstanding successor of the Li family's younger generation. her cultivation had already reached the 6th heavenly layer of the venerable realm. Isn't it a little inappropriate for the two of you to take away our things without saying a word? At this moment another person beside the Li family spoke. It was a bald young man who had also reached the 6th heaven of the honorable realm. And who are you? Lin Xian asked with a frown. I am Sun Tao, a disciple of the Sun family under young master Ling Feng. He was indeed a member of the Sun family, and he was also the most outstanding disciple of the Sun family. Originally, the two clans had discovered a relic here and found two treasures. They were the Jade Bodhi and the Ghost Flower, but they did not expect that the hidden Divine Bird Palace cultivators would snatch them away. So they tried their best to chase after them, and what happened next was the scene that Lin Xian and the others encountered. These people from the 8 great clans did not expect that Lin Xian and Li Jia would be so fierce. They killed the Divine Bird Palace cultivators in an instant and divided the treasures that they had taken a fancy to. How could they tolerate such a thing? After all, those two things were extremely precious. Although they were shocked by the strength of Lin Xian and Zhao Shui, they had more people, so if they really fought, they were not afraid. What 8 great clans? I've never heard of them. Zhao Shui said unhappily. These things are our spoils of war. When did they become yours? The Divine Bird Palace people snatched our things, of course they are ours. Li Jia gritted her teeth and said. Snatched? Zhao Shui sneered. You have the face to say that the things that were snatched are yours? Ridiculous. Without us, I'm afraid that the Divine Bird Palace people would have escaped. Do you think that with your strength you can catch up with them? So, I advise you to get out of here or don't blame me for being rude. The other party's name might scare other warriors, but it had no effect on Zhao Shui. Hearing Zhao Shui's words, the disciples of the two clans suddenly trembled with anger. They looked at Zhao Shui one by one, wishing they could kill her. They were too angry. Their clans were the most powerful clans under young master Ling Feng, and no one dared to look down on them. But now, someone dared to berate them, which made them unable to tolerate. The bald young man, Sun Tao, stared at Lin Xian and said coldly, Boy, you'd better persuade your companions to obediently hand over the things in your hands, and I won't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, you know the consequences. Although they were angry, they didn't want to make a move easily. After all, there was danger at any time in the secret territory, so they tried not to make a move. Moreover, they wanted to use their name and strength to deter the other party and make them obediently hand over the things in their hands. However, it was obvious that he had found the wrong person. Lin Xian heard the bald man's warning and suddenly revealed a sneer. My companions have a good temper, just telling you to get out of here. If you provoke me, I'll directly kill you. So, you'd better get out of here. Lin Xian's words stunned the people on the other side. They didn't expect that someone would dare to threaten them. How many years had it been since something like this happened? Where did this brat come from? How dare you boast so shamelessly and want to kill us? You're courting death. You came from the mountains, right? Don't you know that we're the 8 great families? You should know that we're the most powerful family under young master Ling Feng. Brat, didn't your elders tell you before you came out? That's right. How dare you look down on us? I'll cut you into pieces later. Those martial artists shouted angrily. Lin Xian's eyes were cold. Then he flicked his finger and countless blood-red sword chi quickly formed and flew out from between his fingers, quickly piercing through those martial artists who had spoken arrogantly. Poof, 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 poof. Those martial artists who had cursed the most fiercely suddenly had a bloody hole in between their eyebrows and their bodies fell weakly to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone's pupils shrank abruptly and their eyes were filled with horror. In particular, Sun Tao and Li Jia, who were leading the group, were even more shocked. This was because they knew that the disciples they had brought along were the elite disciples of their families and were extremely powerful. However, the other party had killed all of them with just a flick of his finger. Wasn't this method a little too terrifying? Brat, how dare you kill our people? Don't you want to live anymore? Sun Tao gritted his teeth and said, Humph, I even dared to kill Lu Lai, let alone you. Lin Xian showed a trace of disdain. What? Kill Lu Lai? Chapter 11:14. They pointed at Lin Xian as their bodies trembled. You're that Lin Xian? That's right, that's me. Lin Xian said proudly. When these words were spoken, everyone was in an uproar. They all looked forward, their expressions shaken. They weren't unfamiliar with this name because they'd received an order in the past that if they encountered Lin Xian in the Hidden Sky realm, they were to immediately kill him without mercy and leave no survivors. Not because of anything else but because the other party had killed Lu Lai. Lu Lai was just like them, a genius disciple of the 8 big families. However, Lu Lai's sister was favored by child Ling Feng and had become his woman. Therefore, the Lu family's status had risen, and Lu Lai's status was even more honorable. Moreover, the kill order was issued by Lu Lai's sister, Lu Mei. However, they did not expect to meet Lin Xian here. Brat, I didn't expect to meet you here. Since you dared to kill Lu Lai, you're dead meat. Humph, I advise you to give up and you might be able to die a quick death. Otherwise, you won't have a good ending if you offend child. The seductive lady sneered. Do you know that the kill order was issued by Lu Mei? She's child's woman. Do you think you can escape? Li Jia was very confident because no one who offended child Ling Feng would be able to survive. Lin Xian was no exception. She was just a woman and there was nothing to be afraid of. Lin Xian shook his head and did not care at all. Indeed, he did not care. Now that his strength had increased greatly, he would not be afraid even if he faced a 7th heaven honorable realm expert. Moreover, this was only the beginning. If he could obtain even more treasures, his strength would increase again. At that time, he wouldn't care about young Master Ling Feng anymore. You're boasting shamelessly. Today I'll take your life. If we get your head, we'll definitely be rewarded greatly. Therefore you can die in peace. The bald man, Sun Tao, shouted coldly as his body released a powerful aura. With a flick of his finger, a good treasure sword appeared in his hand. As he waved his arm, the long sword vibrated and emitted a dazzling light. In an instant, a sharp sword chi slashed forward. Do you need help? Zhao Shui asked. No need, it's just a few small fries. Lin Xian shook his head slightly. It just so happened that he had recently increased his strength and hadn't fought yet. Now was the perfect time to use them as practice. While Lin Xian and Zhao Shui were chatting, they clenched their fists and countless rays of blood-red light gathered to form a blood-red sword. Then it quickly enlarged and slashed out fiercely. As soon as the blood-red longsword appeared, the void trembled, and an endless murderous aura filled the air. A bright red sword light blossomed like a long river of blood, making one's scalp go numb. Facing Sun Tao, Lin Xian didn't take out a weapon at all. He only used his spirit power to condense a sword chi. However, this sword was too terrifying. Bang! In the next moment, the 2 sword lights clashed in the air, emitting a deafening sound. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, Sun Tao's sword flew out of his hand. His entire body seemed to have suffered a heavy blow, and he spat out blood as he flew out. What? How is this possible? Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. As for Li Jia, she screamed with a face full of disbelief. This was because Sun Tao's strength was similar to hers. They were both at the 6th heaven of the Venerable Realm. Such strength could be said to be extremely powerful among the younger generation. Even some of the older generation were no match for them. However, Sun Tao was defeated in a single move. Moreover, it was a crushing defeat. She couldn't believe it. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. This must be a coincidence. Li Jia shook her head, her eyes full of disbelief. She bit her lips so hard that they almost bled. In the next moment, she made up her mind and quickly attacked. Careless, Sun Tao must have been careless. That's why this kid succeeded. This time I'll go all out. I don't believe that kid can block it. Humph, he's just a 5th heaven of the Venerable Realm kid. How strong can he be? Li Jia quickly calmed down, and a sinister smile appeared on the corners of her mouth again. She had already seen Lin Xian's cultivation. He was only at the 5th heaven of the Venerable Realm. Moreover, she believed that Sun Tao must have been careless just now, which was why his opponent succeeded. However, she wasn't going to be careless this time. Die, brat. Li Jia quickly waved her palms and palm shadows flickered in the air, connecting together and imprinting themselves in the void. Suddenly, heaven and earth trembled, and there was a loud explosion in the void. Then, a terrifying force quickly surged out and pressed down on Lin Xian. The power was too terrifying. It was as if a Tyrannosaurus was rampaging in the palace, causing the entire sky to tremble. One had to admit that Li Jia was very strong. She was definitely one of the top existences among the younger generation. Even the older generation was inferior to her. However, it was a pity that she had met Lin Xian, who was even stronger and more monstrous than her. Looking at the shocking palm shadows, Lin Xian was expressionless. Then he raised his arm and countless blood-red sword chi revolved around his palm. They quickly intertwined and formed a huge blood-red cauldron. The huge cauldron was completely formed by sword chi, and it emitted a red light as if there was blood flowing on it. Along with it, there was an unusually fierce aura and a thick blood chi. In the next moment, Lin Xian threw out the blood sword cauldron in his hand. Rumble. Once the blood sword cauldron was thrown out, the void trembled as if it would collapse at any time. The blood-red light dyed the entire sky red. In the next moment, the blood sword cauldron quickly shuttled through the air and collided with the palm shadows. In the blink of an eye, the two collided. However, the shocking thing was that the collision didn't stop at all. In the next moment, the blood sword cauldron directly tore apart the palm shadows that filled the sky, and then crashed into Li Jia with an even more terrifying force. What? That's impossible. Seeing this, Li Jia finally screamed in horror. She couldn't believe that the palm shadows that she had thrown out with all her might were easily torn apart like paper. This was completely beyond her understanding. However, while she was in a daze, the blood sword cauldron violently bombarded her body and sent her flying. Poof! Li Jia was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. At the same time, she kept vomiting blood and was severely injured. In just 2 moves, Lin Xian was severely injured like 2 6th-level supremacies. This scene stunned the remaining cultivators. That was a 6th-level supremacies. They were extremely powerful existences, but they were easily swatted away like flies. They couldn't believe it. No, impossible, I don't believe it. Brother Sun Tao and sister Li Jia are the most powerful beings in our younger generation. How could they lose? Damn it, who is this kid? How can he be so powerful? Is he really from the younger generation? Why do I feel like he's a peerless old monster? This kid is too powerful. Should we run? Chapter 11:15. On the other side, Lin Xian stopped his attack in satisfaction. To be honest, the blood-red sword Qi's power had exceeded his expectations. Even though he knew that it would not be difficult for him to defeat a 6th-level honorable, he still felt a surge of excitement when he had actually sent a 6th-level honorable flying. That was a 6th-level honorable after all. Not too long ago, this was an existence that he could only look up to. Now, he could send this kind of honorable flying with a wave of his hand. This kind of huge improvement made him feel proud and lofty. Lin Xian shook his head as he casually glanced at the heavily injured Li Jia and Sun Tao. He didn't kill him, but thinking about it, with the other party's injuries, it was impossible for him to pose any threat to him. As for the remaining cultivators, he would not make a move against them because they were not worthy of his attention. However, there were a few questions that he still had to ask. Where did you find this jade Bodhi and the ghost flower? Lin Xian stared at a disciple in front of him and asked in a deep voice. There's a cave in front. It should have been left behind by a powerful cultivator. The disciple's entire body trembled as he forced himself to speak. His heart was filled with fear and he was afraid that Lin Xian would kill him in a fit of anger. Fortunately, Lin Xian had only asked a few questions and did not attack him. After finding out where the 2 treasures had been unearthed, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui left the place and headed towards the mysterious cave. The disciples of the Sun and Li family turned ashen when they saw Lin Xian and Li Jia's departing figures. What do we do? Are we going to let them off just like that? What else can we do? Didn't you see that brother Sun Tao and sister Li Jia are both injured? We're no match for them. Damn it, I can't accept this. Don't worry, that kid will be unlucky. Based on his previous questions, he probably hasn't given up yet. I think he must have gone to that mysterious cave. Based on their personalities, they'll definitely covet those treasures when the time comes. However, there are members of the Murong family in that cave. When the time comes, both sides will definitely clash. No matter how powerful that kid is, he can't defeat the Murong family. He's going to be unlucky soon. Really? If that's the case, that would be great. I really want to see how that brat will look when he's defeated by the Murong clan. The group of disciples sneered. In the end, they quickly ran forward and helped Sun Tao and Li Jia up. Sister Li Jia, how are you? Brother Sun Tao, don't scare me. A group of people ran forward and looked at Sun Tao and Li Jia worriedly. Their storage rings had already been taken away, so they could only take the pills from the disciples next to them and quickly swallow them. It was only after a long time that the 2 of them regained their color. However, there was still a trace of fear in their eyes. Sun Tao in particular had a very ugly expression. As a genius disciple of the Sun family, he was usually proud and arrogant, not putting anyone in his eyes. Even in the face of an elder, he was not afraid. But now, he was actually defeated in a single move. That blood-red sword Qi was too terrifying, and he still had lingering fears. Don't provoke him anymore. This brat sword Qi is the fiercest I've seen so far. We're no match for him at all. So let's leave the hunting to the Lu family. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Sun Tao was also a swordsman, and his swordsmanship was very sharp. Even the elders were inferior to him. However, such a genius actually admitted that he was inferior to someone else. They had never seen such a situation before. One had to know that Sun Tao was very conceited. No matter how strong he is, I'm afraid he can't be compared to the people from the Deity Sword Villa. After all, that's the sect with the strongest swordsmanship in the continent. Just wait, the people from the Deity Sword Villa are also in that cave. A disciple sneered. Indeed, the Deity Sword Villa is the sect with the strongest swordsmanship in the Jianghu continent. They are also known as the sect that is closest to the king family. I've also fought with the people from the Deity Sword Villa. They are extremely sharp and far surpass their peers. However, I feel that they can't compare to Lin Xian. What? Even the people from the Deity Sword Villa can't compare to Lin Xian? How is that possible? At the side, Li Jia screamed. Although I don't want to admit it, it's the truth. When Li Jia heard this, her face turned ugly. Then she snorted coldly. Let the people from the Murong family deal with this kid. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui did not know what these people were thinking. The two of them flew forward and arrived near the mysterious cave. Lin Xian extended his soul power and quickly sensed it. Then he frowned. The cave was huge, as if a city had been built in the mountain. Judging from the situation inside, it should be the cave of an ancient expert. However, it had become a ruin now. In the cave there were countless figures fighting and fighting fiercely. There were so many people. It seemed that there were many treasures. Lin Xian smiled. He and Zhao Shui looked at each other and smiled. Then their bodies swayed and flew toward the cave. As soon as they entered the cave, they encountered an intense battle. A group of people surrounded a piece of black metal and fought fiercely. All of you get lost. This place has been booked by us. Why? This dark lightning wood was discovered by us first. Another group of people was unconvinced. What? Because we are young Master Ling Feng's subordinates. This voice was very arrogant. Hearing the other party's voice, those martial artists who were still clamoring immediately shrunk their heads. A trace of fear appeared in their eyes. Young Master Ling Feng's strength was famous in the entire continent. They did not expect that these people were young Master Ling Feng's subordinates. So what if it's young Master Ling Feng? We are young Master Annal's people. At this time another faction joined in. They were very powerful and did not fear young Master Ling Feng's faction at all. Tianwu's 4 young masters, this young Master Annal was also one of them. He was also an existence that could call the wind and summon the rain on the continent. Therefore these people had nothing to fear. Hearing this, the people who discovered the dark lightning would first quietly retreated. Because whether it was young Master Ling Feng or young Master Annal, they were not people they could contend against. These two groups of people faced each other. Their strength and status were equal. No one was willing to give way. It seemed that a great battle was about to break out. But at this time a light flashed. The dark lightning wood that was in the center of everyone suddenly disappeared. What? It disappeared? Disappeared? How is that possible? It must be you guys who did it. Young Master Ling Feng's people shouted. We did it? Why do I feel that you guys snatched it? Young Master Annal's people were also anxious. The two groups of people fought and soon after they started fighting. As for the instigator, the snow-white little monkey, it had already left. Zhao Shui looked at the snow-white little monkey in astonishment. To be exact, it was the small worn-out bowl in its hand. Who would have thought that this small bowl had such a miraculous function? Chapter 11:16. Zhao Shui smiled and quickly used the virtual sky eye. Above his head, an illusory eye appeared. Within that eye, a faint golden vortex rapidly formed. In the next moment, the vortex emitted a faint golden light as if it was sucking in something. Then, a scream came from not far in front of her. Damn it! Who stole my treasure? That's an earth crystal you're talking about. It can't be formed without a few thousand years. The voice was heart-wrenching and was clearly extremely angry. However, Zhao Shui smiled faintly and waved her hand. A blue crystal flew out of the virtual sky eye's socket and landed in her hand. An earth crystal. Lin Xian was also extremely surprised when he saw this scene. He didn't expect Zhao Shui's virtual sky eye to have such a miraculous ability. This ability was almost exactly the same as the little white monkey's. The snow-white little monkey hugged the broken bowl and whimpered with an unconvinced look on its face. Zhao Shui said indifferently, "Don't be surprised. This isn't sucking it out of thin air. It's using an extremely strong attractive force to quickly draw the surrounding objects over. This method is convenient but not secretive. It can't be compared to Little White's bowl. Hearing Zhao Shue's words, the little white monkey whimpered and smiled. Lin Xian also nodded slightly and breathed a sigh of relief. So that's how it is. It can't be sucked out of thin air. It's just using a strong attractive force. However, even so, it's still very shocking. As expected of the virtual Sky Eye. It's really mysterious. Damn it, it's the two of you. How dare you steal my earth crystal? In front of them, a young man in armor rushed towards them with a ferocious expression. Seeing the man in front of them, Zhao Shui was expressionless while Lin Xian's mouth twitched. Now he finally knew the difference between Zhao Shui and the little white monkey. When the snow-white little monkey used the small bowl to steal, it did it secretly. No one noticed it and no one noticed. However, Zhao Shui was different. She was robbing in broad daylight. This kind of method was easily discovered by others. However, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui certainly wouldn't sit still and wait for death. The two of them used their movement techniques and quickly left this place. At the back, when the armored young man saw his opponent's terrifying movement technique, he was instantly infuriated and roared furiously. This was because the other party's movement technique was too strange. It was even much stronger than his. Even if he chased after the other party, he might not be able to capture the other party. Furthermore, there were many treasures here. He couldn't bear to leave. Therefore, he could only angrily attack in all directions, destroying everything around him to vent the anger in his heart. When the surrounding martial artists saw this scene, they were also extremely shocked. Not long ago, many rare metal materials were discovered in this area. All the major powers were vying for supremacy. The armored youth was an elite disciple of the Shin family. That armored youth had used his tyrannical strength to force back his opponent. Just as he was about to obtain the earth crystal, he hadn't expected that it would be snatched away at the most critical moment. Moreover, they didn't even know who had done it. Such audacious behavior and mysterious identity were simply too shocking. Moreover, what surprised them even more was that the other party had actually successfully snatched the earth crystal from the hands of the Shin family's elite disciple. Furthermore, they had even left safely. This was simply too unbelievable. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Many figures flew over to the armored youth's side and quickly comforted him. "Brother Hua, you must find those two brats," the armored youth said to another tall figure. The tall youth also said coldly, "Don't worry, I will help you get this thing back." His gaze was cold as he looked ahead with a piercing murderous intent. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui hadn't gone far at all. The two of them were hiding in the dark, avoiding everyone's soul detection. At this moment, they frowned when they heard the words of the group of people in front of them. "I didn't expect them to be disciples of the Shin family," Lin Xian muttered. Zhao Shui snorted coldly. "Who cares if they are from the Shin family or the Wang family? If they want to kill me behind my back, they are dead meat." Lin Xian saw Zhao Shui's cold expression and immediately shook his head slightly. In the past, Zhao Shui wasn't so fierce. However, it was quite impossible to kill these disciples of the Shin family. If they did so, it was very likely that they would be hunted down by the elders of the Shin family. This wasn't worth it for them. Therefore, Lin Xian said slowly, "Wouldn't it be too easy to kill them? Oh, you have other ideas?" Zhao Shui turned around and glanced at Lin Xian. "Of course, this group of people must have found some treasure vault nearby. We will follow them secretly and wait for them to break the seal before we take action to snatch it. I think the feeling of losing the treasure in our hands is worse than killing them." Hearing Lin Xian's suggestion, Zhao Shui was also greatly surprised. She said in surprise, "It seems that you don't have a good relationship with this faction. However, I like your suggestion very much." The two reached a consensus and continued to hide in the shadows. Lin Xian had the heaven-changing art to conceal his presence and wasn't afraid of being discovered. Zhao Shui's void sky eye also emitted a faint golden wave of light that enveloped Zhao Shui's graceful body, isolating her from all soul probing. The two of them were like ghosts in a black hole, hiding around the Shin family disciples. During this time, many cultivators came, but they were quickly driven away by the Shin family disciples. Obviously, they wanted to monopolize this place. After driving away the other factions, the Shin family disciples didn't immediately make a move. Instead, they waited quietly as if they were waiting for someone. Soon a team arrived from afar. There were about 20 to 30 people in this team, including a few elders. As soon as this team appeared, the Shin family disciples cheered. Obviously, this was the group they were waiting for. "Elders, you're finally here," said the tall youth, Shin Hua. "Young Master Hua, let's begin." An elder's eyes lit up. "After our investigation, this place should be a treasure vault. However, this vault has a powerful seal that is very difficult to break. However, from the scattered earth crystals and other things, there are definitely many precious items inside. Therefore, I feel that we need to break the seal. Hearing Xinhua's information, the elders were also excited. In that case, let's break the seal. After that, several elders and young outstanding disciples gathered together and prepared to break the seal. As for the weaker disciples, they formed a defensive circle around the perimeter to prevent other forces from interfering. Bang bang bang. Chapter 11:17. However, these cultivators were all chased away by the outer disciples of the Xin family without exception. No one was able to break through their line of defense. However, although the surrounding cultivators were repelled, they did not leave. Instead, they lingered around the periphery, nervously watching everything. This place is definitely not simple for so many experts of the Xin family to take action. Yes, it is said that this is a treasure trove. Just the things scattered outside are earth crystals and the like. You can imagine how precious the things inside are. Hearing this, many people gasped, and their eyes were filled with greed. However, someone soon sighed. So what if the treasures are good? This place is occupied by the Xin family. No one else can get their hands on it. Yes, look at the Xin family. They have completely isolated the other forces. When the time comes, I'm afraid they won't even have a chance to get a share. Many people shook their heads and sighed, looking disappointed. However, more people were still lingering, waiting for an opportunity. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui were hiding in the dark, but when they heard the discussions of the surrounding cultivators, they smiled. Originally, we just wanted to snatch some of the treasures in their hands. I didn't expect to meet such a big fish. Zhao Shui's face was full of smiles. Lin Xian was also pleasantly surprised. It seemed that the heavens were treating them well. Judging from the strength of the restriction, this was definitely a precious treasure trove. This kind of restriction was extremely strong. Other forces might not be able to break it. Even Lin Xian would need a lot of time to break it together with the dark red divine dragon. But now, with the Xin family taking the lead, they only needed to wait for the fruits of victory. Sure enough, after half a day, a burst of shocking laughter suddenly came from the front. Ha, it's finally broken. It's really a treasure trove? Sure enough, we didn't waste our energy. Several of the older generation figures looked up to the sky and laughed happily. The tall youth Xinhua was also excited. His eyes shone brightly. The treasures inside were really too precious. Every one of them was above the earth crystals. Hey, this is a fragment of an earth-ranked treasure. I didn't expect to see it here. An old man exclaimed. Damn, there's a shield that's half an earth-step treasure. That's nothing. I even found a few top-grade materials. These materials can be used to refine earth-tier treasures. Cries of surprise could be heard. Clearly, the items in the treasury were too shocking, causing these Xin family disciples to cry out involuntarily. When the people outside heard these shouts, their hearts trembled, and their gazes became extremely fiery. This was because every item in the treasury was a rare treasure that could cause people to fight for it until their heads bled. Immediately, a few martial artists were blinded by greed and rushed forward as if they had gone mad. How dare you steal from our Xin family's territory? You're courting death. A Xin family disciple sneered. Then the Xin family disciple pulled out the long saber at his waist and swung it. Whoosh! A blazing ray of light swallowed and spat out, quickly slashing down from the sky. What followed was a huge roar of thunder and lightning. Bang bang. The few martial artists who rushed up to seize the treasure were chopped into two halves by the saber. Blood dyed the ground red, and the pungent smell of blood permeated the air. This scene was like a basin of cold water, directly splashing the surrounding martial artists awake. Everyone's eyes regained clarity, and they looked forward with lingering fear. It was too terrifying. If they had lost their minds and rushed forward, they would probably have ended up like those people and become corpses. Thinking of this, everyone trembled and kept retreating, their eyes filled with fear. There was no other way. Although the treasures in front were good, they needed to be alive to enjoy them. In front of a king family like the Xin family, no one dared to seize the treasures. However, these martial artists did not dare to seize the treasures, but it did not mean that others did not dare to. In the next moment, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui, who were hiding in the dark, moved. The snow-white monkey hugged the small worn-out bowl and began to exert force to seize the treasures. The void sky eye above Zhao Shui's head also released a faint golden light. Soon, an angry roar came from the treasury ahead. Damn it, who stole my top-grade refining materials? This voice belonged to an old man. It was very old and contained a heaven-shaking fury. The terrifying sound wave was like thunder, exploding in the surroundings. This elder was about to go crazy. As soon as he entered the treasury, he had set his eyes on those top-grade refining materials, wanting to get his hands on them. However, just as he stepped forward, before he could do anything, those top-grade materials disappeared in front of his eyes. When he saw this scene, he went completely mad. That was a top-grade equipment refinement material, something that couldn't be found in the outside world at all. However, the things that originally belonged to him had disappeared in front of his eyes. How could he not go crazy? Damn it, who dares to steal my treasures? Get out here. The elder roared crazily. The sound wave was like a wave, shaking the surrounding martial artists and making them unable to stand steadily. The surrounding martial artists were horrified. They did not expect that someone would really dare to seize the treasures and even succeed. Fuck, who dares to steal the Shin family's things? Does he want to die? Yeah, he's too bold. That's a 7th level venerable. He snatched the treasures from such a powerhouse and he even succeeded. This is unbelievable. It seems that the person who took action is not an ordinary person. Otherwise he would not have succeeded. Everyone discussed animatedly, extremely shocked. They did not expect that such a powerful person would come to this cave, directly ignoring the Shin family. However, before they could finish their discussion, a furious roar came from the treasury in front of them again. Not good, my Earth-rank artifact fragment. Fuck, who touched my half-Earth-rank artifact? Angry roars came one after another. All the Shin family martial artists were incomparably furious. Angry, they were too angry. Their Shin family was a sovereign family, a high and mighty existence. Normally no one dared to provoke them. However, now someone dared to steal their things, and it was not just once. This was not just a slap to their faces, this was simply stealing their lifeblood. One had to know that the items in this treasury were extremely precious. Every item could cause a stir in the Sky Martial continent. However, at this moment they had all been taken away by someone. What was even more hateful was that they did not find any traces of the other party, and they did not even know who the other party was. This was a complete loss of face. If word got out, they would probably be laughed at to death. Of course, it was not that everyone did not find out. Among them, there were a few seniors who found the traces of the treasures being stolen. Immediately, they turned around angrily and stared into the distance. Actually, this was very normal. When the snow-white little monkey stole something, these people would definitely not find out. However, it was different for Zhao Shui. That was a blatant robbery. Hence, it was normal for her to be discovered by these people. Chapter 11:18. You still want to run? Stay here. An elder was enraged. He stretched out his huge palm and grabbed the air in front of him. The huge palm in the air became bigger and bigger, making crashing sounds. It was like a huge mountain crushing down in all directions. The crowd was shocked. This power was too terrifying. Even a 6th heaven honorable realm cultivator would be smashed to pieces. There was no way to block it. It's over. The person who snatched the treasure is in trouble. Not only is he in trouble, he has angered the Shin family and has been caught. I think he will end up in a miserable state. Sigh, as expected of the Shin family. They found the traces of the enemy so quickly. They are indeed incomparably valiant. The crowd shook their heads and sighed. The Shin family was too overbearing. They had sealed the entire treasury and taken it for themselves. This made the martial artists around them unhappy. However, they did not dare to show it. Now that someone had dared to snatch the Shin family's treasure and humiliate the Shin family, they were very happy. However, it seemed like that person was going to play. The young disciples of the Shin family were smug and sneered. How dare he snatch the Shin family's treasure? He is courting death. Humph, when we catch him, I will chop him into pieces. I will let him know the consequences of offending the Shin family. The words of these disciples made the surrounding martial artists tremble. Indeed, offending the Shin family would result in a miserable state. In the sky, a huge palm covered the sky and emitted a dazzling light. It carried the power of wind and thunder as it slammed forward. In an instant, it covered the area where Zhao Shui was. Rumble. Under the huge light palm, everything in front of it turned into ashes. In the ruins, 2 figures appeared in front of the crowd like lightning. As soon as these 2 figures appeared, everyone was stunned. Even the martial artists of the Shin family widened their eyes in disbelief. That was because the 2 figures were too young. It was a man and a woman. They were at most 20 years old. The man was dressed in a green robe and carried an ancient sword on his back. He was tall and handsome. The woman was dressed in white and looked like a fairy. Her beautiful face was filled with boundless coldness. So young? How is that possible? Impossible, it can't be them. I'm afraid the real culprit has already escaped, and these two young men are probably scapegoats. Sure enough, this is the case. Sigh, these two young people are really unlucky. They were pushed into the abyss at such a young age. The surrounding people shook their heads and sighed. In their opinion, it was impossible for such a young person to steal from the Shin family. Even the elder of the Qin clan shouted coldly, "Speak, where did that bastard go? If you can come clean, I might let you go. Otherwise, you'll end up in a miserable state." The surrounding Shin family disciples also quickly surrounded Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. Their eyes were filled with hostility. In their opinion, even if Lin Xian and Zhao Shui stole it, the two of them were still accomplices of that thief. Therefore they would not let him go. However, Zhao Shui coldly said, "Old thing, didn't I just take a few treasures? Is there a need to be so anxious? Besides, these treasures were left behind by an ancient powerhouse. They don't belong to your family. So what if I took them?" On the side, Lin Xian did not say anything. However, he silently snatched another treasure from the treasury. It's them, those thieves are actually them. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. In their opinion, the person who secretly attacked them must be a peerless old monster with an extremely high cultivation. Only such a person would not be afraid of a royal family like the Shin family. However, they did not expect that it would be two young men who attacked them. This was simply too inconceivable. The cultivators of the Shin family were also shocked. The scene in front of them was completely different from what they had imagined. This caused their minds to go blank. However, they quickly reacted. They quickly drew their swords and pointed them at Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. "Kid, hurry up and hand over the treasures you've stolen. Otherwise you're dead meat. How dare you touch our Shin family's things? You must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some shady methods. In the face of absolute power, you're nothing." The elder of the Shin family shouted coldly. In his opinion, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui definitely had some kind of secret technique that allowed them to silently snatch the treasures. As for their strength, he directly ignored it. These two people were so young. So what if they were strong? Not only were there the young elite geniuses of the family here, but there were also experts of the older generation. Therefore they were not afraid of anyone at all. The tall young man, Shen Hua, looked at Lin Xian and Zhao Shui with a gloomy expression. In the end he said coldly, "Why are you wasting your breath on them? Capture them and take back all the treasures. Moreover, find out exactly what method they used to snatch our treasures." The tall young man's voice was extremely cold. Obviously he did not care about the life and death of Lin Xian and Zhao Shui at all. "Men, capture them." The tall young man, Shen Hua, and the people of the older generation looked at each other coldly because there was no need for them to do anything. The one who gave the order was the young man in armor from before. He looked at Lin Xian and Zhao Shui with a ferocious voice. This was because he now knew that his earth crystal had been snatched away by these two people. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding disciples of the Shen family quickly rushed forward and slashed down with their swords and sabers. Immediately, a large amount of sword chi and saber light flew out and slashed towards Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. The scene was too terrifying. The force was enough to injure a sixth heaven venerable realm expert. Spiritual energy surged, causing the entire space to tremble. Zhao Shui harumphed coldly. She waved her jade-like hand and quickly attacked. Immediately, an even more violent and vast force surged out from her palm and swept out in all directions. Lin Xian also flicked his fingers slightly. Streaks of blood-red sword chi expanded in the wind and roared in the sky like blood-red dragons. The sky was turbulent, and the sword chi was threatening. Numerous forces collided in the sky, causing a destructive aura to erupt. In the next moment, the surrounding disciples of the Shen family spat out blood and flew out as if they were struck by lightning. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui had their hands behind their backs. They looked cold and arrogant. Their eyes were like lightning as they looked around disdainfully. It was as if they were looking down on all the experts in the world. What? How is this possible? Seeing this, everyone was stunned. Their mouths were wide open and their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. They could not believe that the two young men and woman in front of them could injure more than 10 disciples of the Shin family with a raise of their hands. This was something that could not even happen in their dreams. After all, those cultivators were disciples of the imperial families. The fact that they could enter the remote heavenly mystery realm meant that they were not weak. Moreover, with so many people joining forces, even the older generation would have a headache. However, they were sent flying with a single move. Chapter 11:19. The seniors frowned as they stared at the two figures with flickering eyes. Xinhua, on the other hand, had a gloomy expression. As a disciple of a sovereign clan, they had always been revered by others. No one had ever dared to disobey them, let alone injure them. Yet now, someone had actually disregarded their status and injured them in front of so many people. This was a direct slap to their faces. As a sovereign clan, they would be too ashamed to continue living if they could not resolve this matter. Xinhua snorted coldly and took a step forward. He was about to attack. However, a black-robed old man beside him stepped forward and stopped Xinhua. "Young Master Hua, there's no need for you to deal with this matter. Let me do it. Then I'll have to trouble you, elder." Xinhua withdrew his foot and said in a deep voice. In terms of strength, Xinhua was not the strongest person present. He had only just reached the 6th heavenly layer of the Venerate realm. There was still a gap between him and those seniors. However, his status was very special because he was a direct descendant of the Xin clan. It could be said that his status and bloodline were the noblest among the people present. Even though those seniors were powerful, they still had to listen to Xinhua. The black-robed old man stopped Xinhua and took a step forward. His eyes flickered as he looked at the two figures in front of him. "I must say that the strength of the two of you has indeed exceeded our expectations. However, that's all. Originally, you only needed to hand over the treasures. However, things are different now. You actually dared to attack a disciple of my Xin clan in public. You've committed an unforgivable capital crime. Therefore, you can only repay it with your lives." The black-robed old man's aura was very powerful. He had already reached the 6th heavenly layer of the Venerate realm. Moreover, he had accumulated his strength at the 6th heavenly layer of the Venerate realm for over 100 years. He could be said to be very powerful. An ordinary 6th heavenly layer of the Venerate realm could not compare to him. Therefore, in his opinion, it would be as easy as flipping his hand to kill the young man and woman before him. However, Zhao Shui snorted coldly. "Old bastard, you're taking advantage of your seniority. You really have a lot of nonsense. If you want to fight, then hurry up and attack." Her voice was filled with disdain. "You're courting death." The black-robed old man was enraged when he heard that. No one had ever dared to look down on him, and the other party was just a young junior. In the next moment, the spiritual energy in his body burst out, and the powerful energy of a 6th heaven venerable emerged. He punched out, causing the void to tremble. Tens of thousands of lightning flashed. The terrifying fist also carried with it boundless lightning. It was as if the god of thunder had descended to the world, blasting forward. However, Zhao Shui's expression was cold and her lips curled up in disdain. She raised her slender jade-like hand and gently pressed forward. Rumble. Countless rumbling sounds rang out. Under Zhao Shui's delicate hand, the violent thunder fist quickly cracked open. Endless thunder and lightning were destroyed and scattered in the void. "What? This is impossible." Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. They didn't dare to believe what they were seeing. The black-robed old man's pupils shrank as he continuously retreated. Only then was he able to block the energy shockwave. "Impossible? How could you possibly possess such powerful strength?" He was about to go crazy and was extremely shocked. He thought that killing a young junior would be as easy as taking something out of his pocket. However, he didn't expect that his violent lightning fist would be easily broken by the other party. He couldn't accept this at all. You're a 7th heaven venerable?" The black-robed old man said with a trembling voice. "What? 7th heaven venerable?" Hearing this, everyone was shocked and gasped. A 7th heaven venerable was an extremely powerful existence. No wonder she dared to snatch the Xin family's things. Under normal circumstances, those who had reached the 7th heaven venerable realm were usually elders. Very few people could reach this realm at such a young age. "Who exactly are you? Which faction do you belong to?" The black-robed old man asked with a trembling voice. He was too shocked. Such a young 7th heaven venerable realm was rare. Now, he suppressed the shock in his heart and wanted to ask about the faction behind Zhao Shui. Because someone who could reach the 7th heaven venerable realm at such a young age was definitely a disciple of a sovereign clan. For example, the Xin family also had a 7th heaven venerable realm of the younger generation. Therefore, in his opinion, there was definitely a sovereign clan behind Zhao Shui. Which sovereign clan dared to make a move against the Shen family so brazenly? The black-robed old man was shocked. He had to get to the bottom of this matter. Otherwise, the Shen family would be in danger in the remote sky secret realm. I'm from the Void Sky School, Zhao Shui said proudly. She didn't hide anything. Void Sky School? What kind of school is that? Hearing Zhao Shui's words, everyone was stunned. They carefully thought about it and realized that they had never heard of this school. The elders of the Shen family were also stunned. They discussed in low voices and realized that there was no Void Sky School in the Jianghu continent. Fraud. At this moment, the purple-robed elder of the Shen family shouted coldly, "Don't think that you can be lawless just because you've reached the seventh heaven venerable realm. Let me tell you, you don't have the qualifications to be arrogant in front of our Shen family. I don't care which faction you belong to. I'll give you a piece of advice. Quickly hand over the things you stole and I can let you leave safely. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." The purple-robed old man finally stood out. Seeing the purple-robed old man, all the martial artists of the Shen family heaved a sigh of relief. There was nothing they could do. Zhao Shui's strength was too terrifying. She was actually a seventh heaven venerable realm. This completely surpassed all of them. Therefore they had no chance of winning against Zhao Shui. However, the purple-robed old man was different this time, because he was also a seventh heaven venerable realm. Moreover, the purple-robed old man's cultivation was definitely stronger than his opponent's. Because looking at Zhao Shui's age, she was only in her 20s. She had probably just entered the seventh heaven venerable realm. However, the purple-robed old man was different. He had already entered the seventh heaven venerable realm for dozens of years. He was definitely incomparably powerful. Even seventh heaven venerables have differences in strength. Today I'll teach you a lesson and let you know that there's always someone stronger than you. The purple-robed old man faced Zhao Shui with the attitude of a senior. Is that so? I'd like to see what right you have to say that. Zhao Shui sneered. Then the two of them faced each other from a distance. Although they didn't attack, their auras had already begun to clash in the air. Low sounds of collision rang out continuously in the air. Flashes of lightning flashed from time to time. It was very obvious that the two of them were already competing. Everyone retreated one after another, leaving a considerable distance for the two of them. Because a seventh heaven venerable realm was too terrifying, just their aura alone wasn't something they could resist. Lin Xian also stepped lightly and returned to a safe distance to watch silently. He had already seen Zhao Shui's strength before, so he wasn't worried that she would be injured at all. Lin Xian shifted his gaze away from Zhao Shui and looked at the treasury again. It seemed that he still wanted to continue seizing. Chapter 11:20. You're still thinking about the treasure vault at this time? I have to say that you're too presumptuous. Kid, kneel down and accept your death. Hand over the treasure in your hands obediently and I'll leave you with a complete corpse. Otherwise, you'll suffer the most painful punishment in the world. The group of Shen family warriors stared at Lin Xian with unfriendly looks. You're still so arrogant. Looks like I haven't taught you enough of a lesson. Lin Xian squinted his eyes and said indifferently. You're just a fifth heaven supremacy. How dare you say such words? You're courting death. Kid, I admit that your companion is very powerful. She's really strong to be able to reach seventh heaven supremacy at her age. However, you're much weaker. A fifth heaven supremacy is nothing in front of us. The group of people noticed Lin Xian's cultivation and sneered. To them, Zhao Shui was undoubtedly the leader of the two of them while Lin Xian was their underling. Thus, they were not afraid of Lin Xian in the slightest. Instead, they were looking down on him with arrogance. Brother Hua, let me go. The young man in armor at the side gritted his teeth and said. He was furious when Zhao Shui snatched the earth crystal previously. However, Zhao Shui was too powerful and he could not defeat her. Therefore, he could only transfer his anger to Lin Xian. Although he was only a fifth heaven supremacy, he was extremely confident in dealing with Lin Xian. That was because he was from a king family. He had a powerful cultivation technique and the quality of his spiritual power was much higher than his peers. Moreover, he had mastered many powerful martial arts techniques, which made his combat strength very strong. More importantly, his cultivation was not an ordinary fifth heaven supremacy. He had one foot in the door of the sixth heaven supremacy and could be said to be the most powerful existence among the fifth heaven supremacy. For someone like him, he was confident in fighting against an ordinary sixth heaven supremacy, let alone a supremacy of the same level. Therefore, in his opinion, dealing with Lin Xian would be a piece of cake. Brat, believe it or not, I only need one move to capture you. The armored youth was extremely arrogant. I don't believe it. The corners of Lin Xian's mouth curled up in disdain. With his current strength he could easily defeat a 6th heaven venerable, let alone a 5th heaven venerable. Therefore he did not take the armored youth seriously at all. However, Lin Xian's attitude had undoubtedly infuriated the armored youth. Brat, you've successfully angered me, so your end will be very miserable. The armored young man's voice was ferocious. Then he stomped his foot and charged toward Lin Xian like a bolt of lightning. Lin Xian's attitude completely infuriated the armored youth. If Zhao Shui was the one being arrogant, then so be it. After all, she was a 7th level venerable, and her strength could crush everything. There was nothing he could do. However, the young man in front of him was clearly only a 5th heaven venerable, yet he dared to be so arrogant. He was simply courting death. Therefore the armored youth was very angry and the consequences were very serious. He planned to let Lin Xian taste all the torture in the world after capturing him. In an instant the armored youth arrived in front of Lin Xian like a bolt of lightning. His 5 fingers formed a claw and he suddenly grabbed down. It was a very insidious martial technique called the Nether Ghost Claw. Any cultivator who was grabbed by this ghost claw would have their blood sucked dry, and they would become a dried corpse. It could be said that it was very insidious. At this moment the armored youth was using such a technique, and he was prepared to let Lin Xian die in pain. His ghost claw was dozens of meters long, and it was surrounded by a black light with a shocking aura. Seeing this scene, everyone exclaimed because the armored youth's move was too terrifying. It already had the aura of a 6th heaven venerable. Although it was very faint, it was not something that an ordinary 5th heaven venerable could resist. Although that young man is also a 5th heaven venerable, he can't withstand this claw at all. Yes, among those of the same level, the disciples of the royal families are gods. No one can defeat them. It's over. That beautiful woman is also being held back by the Shen family's elder. I'm afraid she doesn't have the strength to spare to deal with this kid. The surrounding cultivators sighed. On the other hand, the Shen family members sneered and were ready to watch the show. A 5th heaven kid dares to be impudent in front of us? He really doesn't know how to write the word death. Just watch, he definitely won't be able to block this claw. I reckon that woman in white won't have the chance to attack either. Speaking of this, everyone looked at the woman in white again. The purple-robed elder of the Shen family also had a solemn expression. He was using all his strength to hold back Zhao Shui so that she could not attack. However, Zhao Shui's expression was cold, and she had no intention of helping Lin Xian at all. This action stunned everyone. However, the disciples of the Shen family sneered. Ah, looks like this kid has been abandoned. Yes, that woman in white won't attack at all. That kid definitely won't be able to escape this calamity. When the armored young man heard about this, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Ah, kid, die. As soon as he finished speaking, the black bone claw in the sky suddenly grabbed down and tore the void apart. It directly enveloped Lin Xian completely. Lin Xian's lips curled into a mocking smile. This group of people is really pitifully stupid. In the next moment, his expression turned solemn. He snorted coldly, and a blood-red sword ray flew out from his body and slashed forward. Rumble. The blood-red sword ray flashed, and it was like a red sea that was extremely vast and mighty. Accompanying it was an unusually sharp force that surged and surged, as if it was tearing the 9 heavens apart. In just a split second, the black ghost claw above was torn apart. The sword chi collided, and the bone claw was smashed into pieces and no longer existed. The armored young man also screamed in pain and his body flew out. Before he landed, his body had already been split into 2. This scene was extremely shocking and it directly stunned everyone. The elite genius of the Shen family was dead. He was actually killed by a single sword strike. It was truly unbelievable. Moreover, the person who accomplished this feat was merely a young man who was only at the 5th heaven of the Venerable Realm. Everyone's scalps went numb when they saw this scene, and their hearts trembled. What kind of power was this? How could he kill a genius who was half a step into the 6th heaven of the Venerable Realm with a single sword strike? Who exactly was this young man? How could he have such terrifying combat strength? No. The disciples of the Shen family turned pale with fright and screamed one after another. The pupils of the older generation also shrank abruptly. They could not believe what they had just seen. How dare you kill our Shen family's disciple? Kid, you're dead meat. Kill him and avenge our Shen family's disciple. The tall young man Shen Hua's face was terrifyingly gloomy. Previously, Zhao Shui had already shocked them to the core. However, this time, they did not expect that the young man whom they had originally regarded as an ant would have such shocking power. Not only that, but he also killed an elite disciple of the Shin family in public. Chapter 11:21. A fifth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator actually possesses the strength of a sixth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator. I must say that you've truly surprised me. However, no one can casually kill a disciple of my Shin family. You're no exception. I'll personally take action and kill you as a sacrifice to the spirit of my Shin family's disciple. What? Shin Hua was going to make a move? Everyone's hearts trembled when they heard those words. The reason for that was because Shin Hua was different from the dead armored young man. He was not a fifth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator, but a sixth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator. Although the mysterious young man before them possessed the battle prowess of a sixth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator, he was still not a sixth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator. Thus, he would definitely not be able to gain the upper hand against a sixth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator like Shin Hua. Furthermore, Shin Hua was not an ordinary sixth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator. He was a core disciple of the Shin family. His strength was definitely unimaginable. It seemed that the Shin family was truly enraged this time. However, the older generation members of the Shin family had worried expressions on their faces. The reason for that was because the young man before them was simply too strange. They were slightly worried. Young Master Hua, there's no need for you to take action against a mere thief. Why don't you let me do it? That's right. I can slap someone like him to death with a single hand. The people who spoke were the older generation members. There's no need. I alone am enough to deal with him, Shin Hua said proudly. This kid is too strange. I'm afraid, there's no need to say any more. If I'm afraid of such a small matter, how could I be worthy of being a genius disciple of the Shin family? Shin Hua said coldly. Indeed, he had rarely been defeated ever since he started cultivating. Apart from a few people of the younger generation who were older than him and whom he could not defeat, he did not take the others seriously at all. Especially now that he had broken through to the sixth heavenly layer exalted realm, he was even more confident that he could contend against those older generation members, let alone this young man who was only a fifth heavenly layer exalted realm cultivator. His opponent was indeed strange, but he was absolutely confident that he could kill him. One had to admit that Shin Hua was definitely an outstanding genius. Regardless of whether it was his cultivation or strength, he far surpassed his peers. He was already able to contend against those older generation members who had lived for hundreds of years. He did not take a single step forward as he stood. His strong and powerful heavenly layer X as he grabbed the long saber at his waist. This long saber was not ordinary. It was a half-earth step artifact. The scabbard was dark green in color. It was made from the skin of a 5-star demon general tiger shark. Precious gems were engraved on it, and they were extremely dazzling. Disregarding everything else, just this scabbard alone was something that countless people could only look up to. Artifact. That's a half-earth step artifact. Someone cried out. Looks like Shin Hua is serious. He used a half-earth tier prized artifact right off the bat. Clearly, he wants to go all out and kill his opponent in one strike, not giving him any chance. Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a cold breath. This was because they could no longer think of any way that Lin Xian could turn defeat into victory. In terms of cultivation, he was only at the fifth heavenly layer, which was no match for Shin Hua. In terms of cultivation techniques and martial skills, Shin Hua's foundation was also profound, far surpassing those of the same level. Moreover, Shin Hua still had a half-earth rank treasured saber in his possession, which made him even more powerful. Therefore, in everyone's opinion, Lin Xian was doomed this time. Shin Hua held the half-earth rank long saber in his hand, and a terrifying aura suddenly rose from his body. Kid, it's your honor to die under my saber. He looked at Lin Xian and a trace of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. You think too much. It's not too late to say these words after you succeed. Lin Xian shook his head slightly, his expression calm. Humph, you still dare to be stubborn when you're about to die. Shin Hua shouted angrily, then waved his arm. The long saber came out of the scabbard, making a clanging sound. A blazing light bloomed like a stormy sea, and a terrifying aura spread out. Endless light shrouded the entire space. What a fierce aura. Feeling the shocking murderous aura emitted from the long saber, everyone's expression changed. They discovered that the long saber's terror was beyond their imagination. In the next moment, Xinhua held the long saber and quickly slashed at Lin Xian. This slash was like a thunderclap from the ninth heaven. Rays of light condensed, forming a huge saber light and slashed forward. Just the light alone was terrifying enough. It hurt the eyes of many martial artists, and they did not dare to look directly at it. One could imagine how terrifying this slash was. The huge blade aura was brought down, cutting through the air and shrouding Lin Xian below. Air waves rolled and the void was cut in half. Lin Xian was about to be cut in half. At this moment Lin Xian moved. Sword chi surrounded his body, making him look like a sword god, as if he was going to split the world. Lin Xian opened his 5 fingers and reached for the sky, holding the entire space in his hand. His body did not move and he still stood there, but his big hand reached out and covered everything. Sword chi surrounded his 5 fingers, and each finger was like a heavenly sword, causing the world to tremble. Bang! The saber light from the half-earth rank treasure was shattered in an instant. And it was not over yet. Lin Xian's big hand was like a dark cloud that covered the sky, and it quickly shrouded Xinhua. What? The saber light was shattered? How is this possible? Everyone was stunned because they did not dare to believe it. That was a saber light from a half-earth rank treasure, and it was definitely terrifying. Moreover, it was produced by Xinhua, a 6th rank supremacy. It could be said that there were few 6th rank supremacies who could match this slash. However, things went beyond everyone's expectations. The terrifying saber light was broken by Lin Xian in an instant. Not only that, but even Xinhua was about to be captured. Not only the surrounding martial artists, but the disciples of the Shen family were also terrified. Originally, they were extremely arrogant and thought that as long as Xinhua made a move, he would definitely be able to kill the enemy easily. But they did not expect things to turn out like this. Not only was Lin Xian not dead, but he was also not injured. Moreover, it seemed that he wanted to kill Xinhua. The change was too fast and it was hard for anyone to accept. Impossible, how could you break my saber light? Xinhua went crazy and his face was full of disbelief. Previously, he had vowed to look down on Lin Xian and did not take him seriously at all. But he did not expect that this young man, who he regarded as an ant, would have such power and easily break his attack. And now he wanted to kill him. He could not accept it. Open. Xinhua was furious. He held the long saber in his hand and swept it in all directions. Countless saber lights swept across, as if he wanted to cut Lin Xian's 5 fingers into pieces. However, he had underestimated the 5 fingers. At this moment, Lin Xian displayed his full strength, and his 5 fingers were like heavenly swords that were extremely sharp. Not only that, there were dragon-shaped sword chi revolving around each of his fingers. It contained the power of the dragon sword soul and it was extremely powerful. Even a 7th rank supremacy would find it difficult to break it, let alone a 6th rank supremacy like Xinhua. Rumble. Countless saber lights slashed on the 5 fingers, and there were clanging sounds, but they could not shake them at all. Chapter 11:22. No, I won't lose. Xinhua was heartbroken. His expression was ferocious, and he was no longer as calm and arrogant as before. In the next moment he struggled with all his might like a madman, but it was to no avail. Impossible, how can you be so powerful? He was completely mad and the confidence in his heart was shattered. Originally he was also a prodigy in his family. Apart from a few older brothers, he was not afraid of any opponents at all. However, Lin Xian's strength now made him feel as if he had been struck by lightning. The confidence and fighting spirit that he had accumulated over many years were completely shattered. That was because Lin Xian was too powerful. His cultivation level was lower than his, but his strength was much higher than his. Facing Lin Xian was like facing a 7th heaven supremacy. This made him unable to resist at all. Meanwhile, the expressions of the older generation of the Shen family behind him changed drastically. That was because Xinhua's identity was not ordinary. He was a direct disciple and they could not afford to lose him. At the same time, they were extremely shocked. They had long expected that the other party was very strange, but they did not expect that the degree of strangeness was far beyond their imagination. A 5th heaven supremacy had suppressed a 6th heaven supremacy with a raise of his hand. This technique was really too terrifying. Thus, they did not dare to delay and quickly attacked, afraid that Lin Xian would kill Xinhua. Stop, you little thief. Hurry up and release him and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, there will be no way for you to live in this world. A few of the older generation were enraged, and they instantly exploded with unparalleled power. The power was extremely terrifying, and it was as if it was going to shatter the entire cave. Fortunately, the people who attacked were all very powerful, and their control of power was very precise. Thus, the power did not destroy the cave. Instead, it all surged toward Lin Xian. Looking at this scene, the surrounding cultivators were shocked again. The older generation was too powerful. Each of them was far more powerful than Xinhua. At this moment, if they attacked together, it was likely that no one could resist. This Lin Xian was very powerful, but he probably did not have the strength to resist so many of the older generation. Thus, for a moment, everyone's hearts were in their mouths again. Lin Xian's expression was also dark. With so many of the older generation attacking, even he would find it difficult to resist. However, his expression was cold and he was fearless. The next moment he snorted coldly. "I'll kill whoever dares to attack me." After saying that, he exerted a little force in his hand, and Xinhua, who was in the middle of his palm, suddenly screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Hearing this scream, the expressions of those older generation figures changed. They quickly clenched their teeth and withdrew their power. They didn't dare to make a move. If they didn't kill Lin Xian in an instant, they were afraid that the other party would definitely kill Xinhua. At that time, things would get out of hand. The entire Xin family would probably be furious. Therefore, these people withdrew their forces in time, but they didn't give up. Instead, they surrounded Lin Xian. In the distance, the purple-robed old man who was battling Zhao Shui also heard the news, and his face instantly became gloomy. With a cold snort, he ignored Zhao Shui and quickly rushed towards Lin Xian. Zhao Shui also appeared beside Lin Xian in a flash. Both sides faced each other, and the atmosphere in the entire space was extremely tense. "Kid, I advise you not to make a mistake. Quickly let him go. Otherwise, I'm afraid there will be no way for you to live in Jianghu continent." The purple-robed old man said coldly. "I can let him go, but it depends on whether you have sincerity or not." Lin Xian's lips curled up slightly. He didn't intend to kill Xinhua because he didn't want to get into this kind of trouble. However, it was impossible to let him go so easily. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the Xin family warriors secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, as long as the other party wasn't determined to kill Xinhua, everything would be easy to handle. "What do you want?" the purple-robed old man asked in a deep voice. "It's very simple. Use the treasure vault in exchange for his life," Lin Xian said lightly. "What?" Hearing this, everyone's eyelids twitched wildly, especially the Xin family warriors. Their faces were extremely ugly. They had spent a lot of effort to get the treasure vault, and it was full of peerless treasures. Incomparably precious. How could they bear to give it to someone else? The purple-robed old man's face darkened. His gaze was cold as he stared at Lin Xian and said coldly, "Young man, you're too greedy." His voice was filled with thick killing intent. Obviously, Lin Xian's words caused his killing intent to soar. Lin Xian shrugged his shoulders in an indifferent manner. He completely ignored this terrifying murderous aura. Since both sides had already shed all pretense of cordiality and had become enemies, he had to fight for the greatest benefits for himself. Moreover, from the reactions of these people, he knew that the young man he captured had an extremely special identity. Otherwise, these elders wouldn't be so afraid. With such good conditions, only a fool would not make use of it. At this moment, the purple-robed old man from the Shen family spoke again. "It's impossible to give you the entire treasure vault. How about this? I'll let you pick 3 treasures and you let him go. How about that?" 3 treasures? Seems like this kid's life isn't worth much. Lin Xian sneered. "How about this? I'll give you 3 treasures in exchange for this kid's life. How about that?" Hearing this, the elders from the Shen family trembled in anger and almost vomited blood. They glared fiercely at Lin Xian, wishing they could tear him apart. "Kid, I advise you not to go against our Shen family because you can't afford to." The purple-robed old man's voice was cold. "This is my advice to you. This treasure vault is filled with treasures of heaven and earth. They're incomparably precious. 3 treasures is already a lot. You can take these 3 treasures and leave safely. This is the best deal for you." Hearing the purple-robed old man's words, Lin Xian sneered. This group of old things wanted to save someone but couldn't bear to bleed. How could there be such a good deal in the world? He sneered, "Cut the crap. Do you want to exchange the treasure vault or not?" The purple-robed old man was angered until his entire body trembled. An enormous aura quickly gushed out, making the surrounding martial artists feel fear in their hearts. He did not expect that this youth in front of him was actually so stubborn. No matter what he said, the other party seemed to be bent on wanting that treasure vault. But that treasure vault was their flesh and blood. How could they be willing to give it to others? But he was also afraid that the other party would really be ruthless and kill Xinhua. So for a moment, these Xin family martial artists fell into a dilemma. Seeing the Xin family's martial artists hesitate, Lin Xian also frowned. His current situation was very dangerous. If the other party came any more help, then he would be in trouble. At that time, even if he obtained the treasure vault, he could not leave at all. Therefore, he snorted coldly once more and quickly said, "I'll only give you all 10 breaths of time to consider. After 10 breaths, if you don't answer, I'll kill this kid." Hearing this, the faces of those Xin family martial artists were all gloomy. Each person's body emitted a terrifying killing intent. But Lin Xian did not care at all. He opened his mouth in a cold voice. 10, 9, 8. Chapter 11:23. Following Lin Xian's countdown, the air once again condensed as if it was about to freeze. "Young man, leave some leeway for us to meet in the future." The purple-robed elder gritted his teeth and said, "Meet in the future? Who are you trying to fool? Do you think with our relationship we can meet in the future?" Lin Xian sneered and continued. 5, 4, 3. There were still 2 breaths left. However, the Xin family members were still hesitating. At this moment, Lin Xian spoke again. He spoke. "It seems that this brat's life is not limited to just one treasury. I wonder what will happen to you if this news reaches the Xin family?" Hearing Lin Xian's words, everyone's expression changed. The Xin family elders' expressions changed greatly, and a trace of fear appeared in their eyes. The purple-robed elder's pupils shrank, and his expression became extremely ugly. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "We agree to your conditions. The treasury is yours. Hurry up and let him go." Previously, they had been blinded by the treasures in the treasury, so they had forgotten some things. Xinhua was a direct bloodline disciple, and his grandfather was a very powerful elder in the Xin family. If the news of them not saving Xinhua got out, then they would end up in a miserable state. Therefore, they did not dare to hesitate any longer and quickly agreed to Lin Xian's conditions. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian smiled. He spoke again, "Then it's a deal. However, we have to retrieve the treasures in the treasury first. Only then can I let this brat go. I hope what you said is true. Otherwise, no one in the world can save you." The purple-robed elder waved his sleeve. He was gritting his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. "Hurry up and retrieve everything in the treasury. After that, we will leave this place," Lin Xian said to Zhao Shui. Now that he had trapped Xinhua, it was inconvenient for him to make a move. Therefore he asked Zhao Shui to retrieve the treasures. Zhao Shui nodded. Then her figure flashed and she arrived in front of the treasury. She formed a hand seal and the void sky eye appeared. It quickly formed a pale golden vortex to retrieve the treasures in the treasury. Whoosh! The little white monkey also flew over and quickly attacked. It hugged the shabby little bowl and mumbled to itself like a little immortal. Under the horrified gazes of the crowd, the small bowl rapidly expanded as it crazily absorbed the treasures in the treasury. The snow-white monkey's speed was even faster than Zhao Shui's. Lin Xian was also surprised. He didn't think that the little white monkey's worn-out bowl would have such a function. Looking at the speed at which it was being collected, it was definitely one of a kind. After that, Zhao Shui and the little white monkey searched frantically. Soon the entire treasury was emptied. Not even a speck of dust was left. After doing all this, Zhao Shui's figure flashed and came to Lin Xian's side. The snow-white little monkey also sat back down on Lin Xian's shoulder. Lin Xian, on the other hand, wore a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, "Retreat to a safe distance and give us some space to leave. Everyone back off." The purple-robed elder's face was gloomy as he turned around and ordered the Xin family's warriors. The Xin family's warriors were unwilling. Their hearts were bleeding. That was the treasury left behind by an ancient elite. It was filled with extremely precious items. However, at this moment it was emptied. Not even a strand of hair was left behind. They were about to go crazy. However, due to the order, they could only grit their teeth and retreat. Everyone stared intently at Lin Xianxian and Zhao Shui. They had already decided that once the other party released Xinhua, they would chase after the two of them with all their might. They had to take back the treasures that they had lost. After retreating to a safe distance, Lin Xian estimated that it was about time. He and Zhou Shui looked at each other and nodded slightly. Then he waved his hand and released Xinhua. The moment Xinhua was thrown out, the Xin family's elders moved. Two of the elders went to catch Xinhua to prevent him from being captured again. The other elders and warriors quickly chased after Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. They swore to take them down. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless rays of light flew as everyone rushed forward crazily. In particular, the purple-robed elder's speed was even more astonishing. He was like a flint that lit a flint. In an instant, he arrived at the place where Lin Xian was originally standing. He slapped down and covered Lin Xian's body. However, the next moment he frowned. An afterimage. Haha, don't waste your energy. You won't be able to catch up. Lin Xian's laughter came from the front. He had used the illusory demon steps, and his speed was much faster than before. Not only that, but a pair of tempest wings appeared on his back. With a light flap, he flew away as fast as lightning. Zhao Shui was not slow either. She followed closely behind Lin Xian. The two of them were terrifyingly fast. Even a 7th level supremacy would not be able to catch up to them. However, the purple-robed elder did not give up. He still quickly chased after them. As long as he could get close to the two of them, he could stop them and wait for the main force behind. However, the more he chased, the more shocked he became because the distance between the two of them did not decrease at all. In fact, it even increased. This made him extremely shocked. Zhao Shui could still understand. After all, the other party was a 7th level supremacy, and his strength was not inferior to hers. However, Lin Xian's performance shocked him. Lin Xian's speed was actually faster than his, which was unacceptable to him. Damn it, who exactly is this kid? Why is he so strange? He was extremely frustrated. Lin Xian's figure was about to disappear from his sight. The purple-robed elder gritted his teeth and was about to use a secret technique. However, at that moment, a freezing force suddenly came from the front, and the entire passage in front of him was completely frozen. It was like a world of ice and frost. An unusually bone-piercing cold aura filled the air, causing his body to stiffen a little. With a cold shout, the purple-robed elder channeled his spiritual power and shattered the cold aura. Although the cold aura could not cause him any harm, it still slowed him down a little. At that moment, Lin Xian and Lin Xian had already disappeared. Damn you little thief. If I see you again, I'll definitely kill you. The purple-robed elder roared at the sky like a crazy wild beast. His voice shook the surroundings and was extremely terrifying. However, all of this was useless because Lin Xian and Zhao Shui had already left. The two of them used a secret technique to conceal their bodies and aura. Then they quietly advanced into the depths of the cave. After completely getting rid of the Shen family's pursuit, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui stopped. Then they began to organize and distribute the treasures that they had obtained. As Lin Xian had played a key role in the entire operation by capturing Xinhua, Lin Xian ended up with 60% of the treasures while Zhao Shui had 40%. Zhao Shui was not dissatisfied. If she had acted alone, she would have at most snatched a few treasures. She would not have emptied the entire treasury like now. Therefore, she was very satisfied with the current distribution. Lin Xian was ecstatic. The harvest this time was much more than all of his previous operations combined. Moreover, this treasury was extraordinary. It was filled with extremely precious items. If they were placed in the mainland, countless people would go crazy for them. Lin Xian picked some items that could be used temporarily and placed them by his side. He carefully kept the rest of the items in his storage ring. Chapter 11:24. Of course, we're going to do it in one go. Lin Xian's eyes lit up. I reckon that this cave abode was definitely left behind by an ancient peerless powerhouse. It's impossible that there's only this much. There must be other treasures in other places. Aren't you afraid that those forces will be displeased and hunt you down? Zhao Shui asked from the side. I'm not afraid. Lin Xian shrugged and said with a smile, so far, the forces that I've robbed are all forces that have a grudge against me. So, even if I don't rob them, our relationship won't change. Instead of that, why don't I rob more? As long as I'm strong enough, I won't have to be afraid of these forces. Lin Xian was extremely confident. He had sufficient cultivation techniques and pill formulas now. The only thing he lacked was resources. If he had sufficient resources, his cultivation would definitely soar. By then, it would be hard to say who would be afraid of whom. Since that's the case, I'm much more relieved. Zhao Shui nodded. Let's go deeper and take a look. Lin Xian also stood up and ran forward. The two of them were extremely powerful when they joined forces. As long as they weren't surrounded by a group of 7th level supremacies, their lives wouldn't be in danger. The two of them moved forward at a fast speed. However, at this moment, a muffled voice suddenly came from afar. Aha, little girl Morong, I advise you to give up. In your current situation, it's impossible for you to guard these things. Whether we can guard them or not, you'll know when you try. At this moment, another feminine voice was heard. Lin Xian frowned when he heard the voice coming from the front. That voice should belong to Murong Qingqing. Moreover, it seemed like she was in trouble. Speed up, let's follow and take a look. Lin Xian said to Zhao Shui. Then the zephyr wings on his back flapped. Light flashed on them, and as they flapped, they brought with them the power of zephyr thunder, increasing his speed once again. Beside him, Zhao Shui's body glowed brightly as well. She followed closely behind Lin Xian and flew forward. The voice in front of him was indeed Murong Qingqing. Murong Qingqing was wearing a purple robe. She looked very dignified, and her whole body was emitting spiritual energy. Unlike Zhao Shui, the previous Zhao Shui was like a demoness. After losing her memories, her personality became incomparably cold and unapproachable. However, Murong Qingqing was different. She was like a queen with an irresistible temperament. At this moment, she had indeed encountered some trouble. Opposite her were 3 powerful ancient martial art practitioners. 2 of them were 6th heavenly layer venerables, and 1 was a 7th heavenly layer venerable. The 3 of them were very powerful. Little Murong girl, I must say that your powers have exceeded my expectations. You've managed to hold your own against us for such a long time on your own. It's truly shocking. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man. He wore a dark green robe and had a domineering aura around him. This dark green man's aura was terrifying. He had reached the 7th level of supremacy realm. He slowly said, however, it's impossible to protect these treasures. I advise you not to waste your energy. If you get hurt, I won't be able to explain myself to the Murong family. Humph, don't be so smug. The Murong family was the first to discover these items. If you want a share of the loot, you'll have to ask for my permission first. Murong Qingqing did not back down in the face of such a powerful group. Just then, a cold scoff sounded from the side. Little Murong girl, we've already given you a lot of face. If you don't appreciate our kindness, don't blame us for being merciless. This time it was a woman who had spoken. She looked to be in her 30s and her entire body emitted a mature aura. She was wearing a long pink dress which emitted a sparkling and translucent light, revealing her snow-white thighs and proud twin peaks. She was holding a pink paper umbrella, which made her look extremely alluring. However, at this moment her voice was rather cold. Give face. The Murong family doesn't need you to give face. An old lady with a head full of white hair was standing behind Murong Qingqing. When she heard the other party's threat, she scoffed coldly. Since that's the case, I'd like to see how long you can keep up this stubborn act. The girl in pink held the paper umbrella and walked forward step by step. Then, the aura of a 7th level honorable martial artist exploded from the pink woman's body. The moment this aura appeared, the surrounding cultivators felt their scalps go numb. On the other side, Murong Qingqing's expression was solemn as if she was facing a great enemy. To be honest, she could still hold her ground against the previous group of 3. However, if a 7th level honorable martial artist were to join the fray, her situation would become very dangerous. After all, a 7th level honorable martial artist's powers were extremely terrifying. With the addition of such a powerful cultivator, the situation of the battle would definitely change. However, it was impossible for her to admit defeat just like that. Then Murong Qingqing cried out delicately. With a flip of her lily-white hand, a fist-sized imperial jade seal appeared in her hand. The imperial jade seal was scarlet red and a real phoenix was carved on it. It was very lifelike. Light flowed on it as if blood was flowing in a pool. It was exceptionally lifelike. Once the scarlet imperial jade seal appeared, a terrifying aura immediately erupted and resisted the pressure of a 7th level honorable martial artist from the woman in red. Seeing that the other party was able to resist her aura, the pink woman's eyes darkened and she scoffed coldly. Light flowed around her body, and the paper umbrella in her hand also emitted light. Then a beautiful ray of light flew out of the umbrella. It was like a fairy flying from the heavens as it emitted a blinding light and slashed forward. It was an exceptionally stunning ray of light that instantly lit up the entire sky. The surrounding cultivators did not even have time to react before the ray of light arrived in front of Murong Qingqing. It was too terrifying. The ray of light was extremely sharp and quickly pierced towards Murong Qingqing. It was about to pierce through her. Not only that, but the aura of a 7th level honorable martial artist from it was even more terrifying. However, Murong Qingqing cried out delicately. She held the scarlet imperial jade seal in her lily-white hand and blasted it forward. In the next moment, the pink ray of light violently collided with the imperial jade seal and let out an earth-shattering sound. However, what shocked everyone was that the scarlet imperial jade seal actually blocked the ray of light. What? It blocked it? The cultivators on the pink woman's side were shocked and in disbelief. The pink woman was also extremely shocked and could not help but squint her eyes. Murong Qingqing stretched out her lily-white hand and held the scarlet imperial jade seal. The bottom of the imperial jade seal was square, and there was a real dragon coiling around each side. There was a phoenix lying on top of it. It was like an immemorial divine beast that was looking down at the world below. Under Murong Qingqing's control, the phoenix on the imperial jade seal seemed to have awakened and released an infinite ray of light. In a daze, everyone seemed to have seen a huge phoenix awaken and spread its wings to cover the surroundings. Scarlet light flowed and divine light bloomed. It was as if the blood of a god had spilled. It was extremely terrifying. What kind of treasure is this? It's so terrifying. Even I feel a little scared. Chapter 11:25. She'd originally thought that she could easily take down Murong Qingqing with her help. However, she hadn't expected that she wouldn't gain the upper hand at all. Instead, she was intimidated by her opponent's aura. Pink sky fragrance, although you're also a 7th level supremacy, you're nothing compared to my young lady. The white-haired old lady behind Murong Qingqing spoke proudly. The green-robed middle-aged man also frowned. His eyes flickered as he stared at the scarlet jade seal. Then he seemed to recall something and his expression changed. Could this be the true phoenix jade seal? There was even a trace of panic in his voice. At least you're knowledgeable. Of course this is the true phoenix jade seal. The old lady spoke again. Impossible, how is this possible? This time, it was the black-robed middle-aged man's turn to be shocked. As far as I know, not only does controlling the true phoenix jade seal require an extremely high cultivation, but more importantly, a special bloodline power is required to activate it. No one from the Murong clan has met this requirement for nearly 1,000 years. Could it be that she possesses that bloodline? At the end of his sentence, the middle-aged man looked at Murong Qingqing with extreme shock. This time the white-haired old lady didn't answer. Instead, the middle-aged man muttered to himself with an extremely shocked expression. Damn it. Looking at this situation, this Murong Qingqing seems to have that kind of bloodline. I'm afraid the situation isn't good. Duanimo, what are you muttering about? The pink lady frowned. The shock on the dark green man's face surprised everyone, especially the pink woman. She was even more puzzled. She was puzzled because she'd never seen such an expression on his face. Duanimo, what are you talking about? What bloodline? The pink lady asked in confusion. The black-robed middle-aged man took a deep breath and tried his best to control the shock in his heart. Then he said in a deep voice, I can't explain this to you in a short period of time. However, you should have heard of the Murong clan's origin. Murong Shue's bloodline is very similar to that of the Murong clan's first ancestor. What? It's actually that bloodline? The pink lady shrieked in shock when she heard the middle-aged man's words. She hadn't expected Murong Qingqing's bloodline to be so pure that it had actually shown signs of atavism. Damn it, the Murong clan is really lucky to have someone with atavism. The pink lady's voice was filled with jealousy. They were all cultivators from the top clan's bloodline. However, with the passage of time, after thousands of years, the bloodline in their bodies had become very weak. Very few people could be like their ancestors, with the power of their bloodline outstanding. It was very rare, it was atavism to atavism's atavism. Atavisms. However, this kind of phenomenon was extremely rare and almost impossible to find. They never thought that one would appear in the Murong family, and it was right in front of them. Not to the Murong clans, to the Murong clan. To Murong est, es right ti Murong Murong Qingqing. Ti, sa Qingqing's right Murong tis to are we going to give up? Those 6th level supremacies looked towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man frowned. Just as he was about to speak, the pink lady gritted her teeth and said, So what if hers bloodline's atavism? So what if she's strong? Their numbers are limited. If we join forces, I don't believe we can't suppress her. This isn't a battle of life and death. We just need to keep Murong Qingqing occupied while the others go for the treasures. The eyes of the middle-aged man in the dark green robe lit up when he heard this. He smiled. Indeed, he had been shocked by Murong Qingqing's bloodline power before, which was why he had lost his cool. Now that the pink lady had reminded him, he was suddenly enlightened. Murong Qingqing was strong, but they weren't weak either. Moreover, they were an alliance of many forces. Among them, the dark green man was a cultivator from the Palace of Gods of War. Other than that, there were also the 8 clans under Prince Lingfeng. There were also people from the Palace of Gods of Bird. With these forces together, they were definitely stronger than the Murong clan. Let's split up and attack. I'll keep Murong Qingqing occupied. Tianxiang, you take the others to get the treasures. The dark green man said in a deep voice. Then he let out a long roar and charged toward Murong Qingqing again with a few 6th-level respect. The pink lady also led a group of cultivators, bypassing Murong Qingqing and rushing toward the treasures behind her. Seeing this, Murong Qingqing snorted coldly and took the initiative to attack. Purple qi surrounded her body and quickly infused into the Imperial Jade Seal. Then the Imperial Jade Seal trembled gently. With the support of the spiritual power, it quickly grew bigger. It was like a small mountain, blooming with colorful light. The multicolored light shot out like a phoenix being born from the fire. Accompanying it was the low cry of a phoenix. The sound was abnormally terrifying. It tore through the 9 heavens and shook many cultivators, causing them to lose their footing. The cultivators from the Palace of Gods of Bird were even more shocked. They seemed to be in trouble. The aura in their bodies was suppressed and they couldn't even use half of their strength. On the Murong clan's side, their spirits were lifted. Everyone was in high spirits and quickly intercepted the enemy. In the next moment, Murong Qingqing waved her hand and a phoenix shadow quickly attacked. It hovered in the air and flew directly toward the pink lady. Like a phoenix dancing in the 9 heavens, it was extremely powerful. Damn it! When the pink lady saw this scene, she was so scared that her face turned pale. In the face of this terrifying attack, she didn't dare to be careless. She mobilized the spiritual power in her body and the surrounding spiritual qi to counterattack. She placed the paper fan in her hand horizontally and used it as a shield to block this attack. Rumble. The sound shook the sky. The cultivators behind the red lady only felt their ears roar. The spiritual power in their bodies was tumbling. Many of them vomited blood and were sent flying. Not only that, the surrounding mountain rocks collapsed. The entire space became extremely distorted and cracks spread in all directions. This attack was too terrifying. If it weren't for the protection of the array in the ancient cave mansion, this attack would have turned the entire cave mansion into ashes and no longer exist. However, even so, there was still a great shock in the surroundings. It was unforgettable. The red lady's face changed greatly. She only felt an irresistible force hit the paper umbrella in her hand and she was immediately pushed back. On the other side, the middle-aged man in the dark green robe was also stopped by the Murong clan. Both sides were in a stalemate again. In the next moment, the pink lady and the middle-aged man's faces darkened. They didn't expect this result. Although the Murong clan was a powerful clan, they also had the Palace of War Gods on their side. Chapter 11:26. It could be said that they had already surpassed the Murong family in terms of strength. Even so, both sides were only tied. Neither side could do anything to the other. How about this? Let's each take a step back and split the treasures here equally. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Originally, he wanted to chase the Murong family away and take all the treasures for himself. But now it seems impossible. Therefore, he proposed the condition of splitting the treasures equally. At this point, he could not help but look into the distance. There were countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures there, but his gaze fell on a peculiar item. It was a palm. Of course, there was no flesh left, only bones. However, even a blind person could see that this palm bone was extraordinary. This was because this clavicle was not white. Instead, it glowed with a faint golden light. The entire palm bone was faint golden. Although it no longer had any signs of life, there was still a trace of aura on it that shocked everyone. That aura had already surpassed that of a supremacy. Therefore, this palm bone was at least something left behind by a king. Moreover, the middle-aged man reckoned that this was definitely not an ordinary king. This was because he was also from the Palace of Gods of War. There were also kings in the Palace of Gods of War. However, he had never heard of a king whose bones were faint golden. One could imagine how precious this golden palm bone was. Previously, they had risked their lives to chase the Murong family away because of this golden palm bone. Not only was the middle-aged man tempted by this golden palm bone, but all the cultivators present were tempted as well. Moreover, it was not just the palm bone. The area around the palm bone was also filled with precious treasures. For example, there were a few fist-sized crystals near the pale golden palm bone. These crystals were crystal clear and shone with a colorful light. Not only that, but it also contained a shocking amount of spiritual energy. Even from far away, everyone could feel it. The younger disciples might not know what this stone represented, but the older generation, especially the 7th-level supremacies, were all shocked. Their eyes were burning. This was because these were spirit stones. Moreover, they were high-grade spirit stones. Therefore, all cultivators knew about spirit stones. This was because it was an indispensable daily item for cultivators. Whether it was for their own cultivation or to use money to buy other things, it could be said that spirit stones were closely related to cultivators. However, most of the spirit stones on the market were low-grade and middle-grade spirit stones. Among them, low-grade spirit stones were the most inferior. Mid-grade spirit stones were the spirit stones that most martial artists used on a daily basis. Its purity and spiritual power were much better than that of low-grade spirit stones. However, there was another type of spirit stone above that, and that was the high-grade spirit stone. It was much better than the mid-grade spirit stone. Because the spiritual energy contained in it was too pure. There was no need for the martial artist to refine the impurities. They could directly absorb the impurities without any side effects. Furthermore, the energy contained within it was several hundred times that of a middle-tier spirit stone. It could be said that it was exceptionally valuable. Most importantly, once a cultivator broke through from the Exalt realm and attained the King realm, they wouldn't be able to utilize mid-grade spirit stones anymore, whereas high-grade spirit stones could continue to be utilized. One could only imagine how precious a high-grade spirit stone was. This kind of thing couldn't be found on the market because it was monopolized by some of the top forces. However, even those big clans did not have many high-grade spirit stones in their possession. But now there were more than 10 high-grade spirit stones in this place. In addition to the high-grade spirit stones, there were also a few broken weapons which were extremely eye-catching. These weapons were extremely damaged. Some had been completely shattered into pieces while others could still be distinguished. Even though these weapons were damaged, they emanated energy that caused one's heart to palpitate. Everyone knew that these weapons weren't ordinary treasures, and they were the fragments of Earth-ranked treasures. Even though these treasures were broken, their value was even more precious than a quasi-Earth-ranked treasure. Moreover, the size of the fragments here was much larger than any of the fragments they'd encountered in the past. If they were able to obtain it and utilize other materials to refine it, then they would absolutely be able to refine a peerless weapon. Once such a weapon was refined, then even though its strength was inferior to a true Earth-ranked treasure, it could crush any other weapon. If they were able to obtain such a treasure, then it would absolutely be able to improve their combat strength greatly. Besides this, there were other precious treasures of heaven and earth that caused others to go red with envy. Everyone guessed that these treasures probably belonged to the owner of the golden hand bone. However, a great battle might have occurred during the ancient times, causing that expert to perish and leave behind all these treasures. As for where the complete corpse had gone, no one knew at all. Moreover, this wasn't something that they were considering. What they were considering was how to obtain the treasures in this place as much as possible. Originally, this place had been discovered by the Murong family and other cultivators had no way of interfering. However, later on, the middle-aged man from the Palace of Gods of War had arrived. He had led a powerful team and joined forces with the other surrounding 6th-rank sects to fight against the Murong family. Hence, the current situation had occurred. Divide equally? You're all too greedy. Murong Qingqing scoffed coldly, we were the ones who discovered this place. I admit that you were the ones who discovered this place. However, do you think that you have the power to take it all for yourselves? The middle-aged man coldly asked, even though you have the true Phoenix Imperial Jade Seal and can fight against us, what about the others? You should know that our team is an alliance of other top forces. In terms of numbers and battle power, we've already surpassed the Murong family. If we were to really fight, I'm afraid that you won't be able to gain any benefits. Hearing this, the cultivators from the Murong family's faces darkened while Murong Qingqing's eyes flickered. Indeed, these words were not wrong. In terms of battle power, Murong Qingqing could rely on the true Phoenix Imperial Jade Seal to fight against the opponent's 7th-rank honorable martial artist. However, Murong Qingqing could not care less about the others. As for the other 6th-rank honorable martial artists and 5th-rank honorable martial artists, their opponents far outnumbered the Murong family. This did not mean that the Murong family was weak. Instead, their opponents were not just a single organization but an alliance of several top forces. Perhaps no family would be able to fight against a lineup like this. However, Murong Qingqing shook her head resolutely. It's impossible for us to divide evenly. If you're not willing, then let's fight. She was very determined because even though they were outnumbered, she had a peerless treasure like the true Phoenix Imperial Jade Seal in her hands. Coupled with the power of her bloodline, she was confident that she could suppress her opponents. Hence, she would not agree to their demands. Just as both sides were confronting each other and the atmosphere was becoming tense, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui quickly arrived nearby. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.